Oh my God, we made it. What a quest with my software just to be able to get a live stream going. I've got to change something if I intend to do this long term. I still can't see the stream. I highly doubt anybody's here because if I can't see the stream, neither can you. Fun times trying to go live. I just want to go live. It says that I am already live, but it lies to me. Why are you lying? All right, there I am. I think I'm live. Now I can hear myself. Hi, everybody. How you doing? Seen and heard. So throughout the live stream, for those of you who are here, let me know how the video quality is, how the audio quality is, and if things are working. Because I think lives should become a more prominent feature component because they're fun and I get to interact with the chat. And yeah, so I'm here and I want everybody to tell me why I'm wrong. Actually, before we get really going, there's only 28 of you here, but we'll start with the 28 that's here. Hang on a sec. I have a mission for all of you. I know you like working for free, so here's the mission. If we go over to Google and we do a search for my name, it comes up with this info card. And it says I'm a politician and my party is the People's Party of Canada. And that sucks for everybody because it sucks for me because I'm not in the People's Party. I haven't been in a long time. And it sucks for the People's Party because somebody as negative as I am about the pseudo party that the People's Party is probably wouldn't want me associated with it. So I have been getting people I know to suggest edits, basically saying this is fake news. I've done it myself. And like, I'm on the verge of hiring a lawyer. I don't want to spend the money on a lawyer, but like sending Google a legal notice to change this info card because it shouldn't be this way. So that's kind of your action point that you can take away from. If you guys just want to go over there, search my name and suggest edits and tell them this is fake news, that I am no longer part of the People's Party. I haven't been there since 2020. I'm not a politician. I'm a commentator. I'm a social media creator, philosopher. I don't know anything but politician. And I am certainly not in the People's Party. That would be a great place to start, okay? So we'll probably revisit that point as the live stream goes and more people file through. So, yeah, how is everybody? Let's see, what do we got in the chat so far? We have, I see and hear you. That's a positive. You live. You are live. I watched you since before COVID started. Weren't wrong about nothing then. You know, it depends on who you ask, right? There's people out there who claim that I was pushing the shot the entire time. There's people out there who claim all kinds of things, but I know that I was a little bit concerned with what I saw going on in China. I was concerned about our politicians shrugging their shoulders at it, and I was pretty sure their story was going to change at some point, and when it did, the one thing I was sure of, because I didn't know, it could have been deadly, it could have been terrible, it certainly looked terrible, but I knew the government response was going to be terrible, that was for sure. And this idea that I pushed the shot, nothing could be further from the truth. And I know that people who watch this channel and watched back then know that. There are PPC people, another reason why I don't want to be associated with the People's Party of Canada and the idiots that are representing them on Twitter, is they take little clips out of context where I talk to virologists and I brought experts on the show. I brought them on the show to talk about how any shot product that was brought to market jumping regulatory hurdles that didn't go through thorough testing, anything that was brought to market within a couple years, you should avoid. And I brought them on to talk about that. But they don't tell you that part because they take everything out of context. So it sucks. Anyway, that's that. Hi, Frank. Just stumbled on. Thank you, Gary, for showing up. Good to have you here. They cannot change. I believe it has to be the PPC or it cannot be changed. Everybody should just report it. Report it anyway. So I don't have to spend hundreds of dollars hiring a lawyer to send a legal notice because it sucks. No problem, Frank, with advising Google of needed changes to your bio. Thank you for that. After watching Event 201, I thought I was living an episode of Candid Camera. It's crazy, isn't it? Good to see you, Mr. Vaughn. God bless and Godspeed. Thank you, Homefront Forge. You're missing an A in my last name, but that's okay. No one ever spells my last name right. It's just something I have to get used to. So yeah, I'm still waiting for people to show up here and just start spamming me about how I'm wrong about everything. Because what can we do here? What can we do? We'll go to my Twitter feed is what we'll do. So we'll shrink me down. We'll pull this back up and we will talk about first this video. Actually, it wasn't even this video. It was the video I did about the Indian Act. That's kind of where it all started. Because I got into mass immigration a bit then, and then I got into mass immigration versus mass deportation, a false dichotomy. But the tweet in particular, this was from today, actually. This isn't even the old tweet. I gotta refresh my own memory about my own words. How far back I have to go. This was another one. What we need is a stable population, not a growing one. However, the entitlements of the 65-plus crowd and those near to joining them require growth, or they can't be maintained. Retirees don't often vote for the future. They vote for their entitlements. I probably shouldn't have used the term often, because they often do vote for the future, because millions do vote for the future, but millions more don't vote for the future. They vote for healthcare. They vote for Social Security or social insurance or old age security, whatever the hell we call it here. It's all the same. It's all entitlements that have been promised to people that can't be paid out unless, and this is the main point that a lot of people miss when they tell me to go F myself or any other number of pieces of advice that I've been given over that tweet. It's not about what you're entitled to. It's about what's required to pay out those entitlements. When it comes to the immigration issue, there's so many reasons why we are where we are right now that any one solution, explanation, reason isn't enough on its own. There's so much more to the story. The main thing, the foundation, is 1.26 children per woman, fertility below replacement for decades. I'll be teaching my kids math, so yes, they will understand this problem. Why can't these people do math? This was a guy who was super angry that I said, do whites understand that if all immigration ends today and mass deportations begin, we still virtually disappear from the face of the earth in 80 to 100 years if we continue on the trend we're on right now? The same is true for China, Japan, South Korea, etc. Because I think that's an important distinction too, that people understand this isn't just a European problem. It's an Asian problem too. South Koreans disappear in similar order. If things continue on the same pace that they're on right now, on the same trajectory, South Korea lowers its population to about 2 to 3 million South Koreans in 80 to 100 years because their birth rate is even more catastrophic than ours, but ours is already catastrophic. And it's something that's shared across the Western world. And it's like, people just don't want to acknowledge that reality. I mean, as a platform and starting basis, you have to understand that the demographic crisis that we're in right now, we're not entering into it. We're already 40 years in. We're witnessing the consequences of it as we speak. Anyway, I'm going to go back to the chat. They cannot be changed. No problem. After watching Event 201. Making pizza, so have some time to watch live. Right on, Jeff Hack. Enjoy that pizza. If I were Saskatchewan, controlling 90% of the world's potash and 1/5 of the world's uranium, I'd join with Alberta. I'd join America with Alberta. If Alberta joins America. Oh, that's something I've been meaning to get into in a video, is all of the Alberta Next stuff that the UCP under Smith is doing right now, I find her very hard to read. I think, and I've said this before, that independence or 51st statehood are two scenarios that I think are much better than the status quo. But I'm concerned that with Pierre Poilievre moving out to Alberta, with Smith kind of, she's the verbosity and the words are there, but I'm not sure the substance is there. And the delay out to 2026 gives the federal government all kinds of time to develop legislation and pass it, which makes it harder for provinces to exercise their autonomy. Bill C-5 comes to mind, which the Conservative Party supported. They did a bunch of spin on it, but at the end of the day, it's a robbery of provincial autonomy. And the promise of future project development is ephemeral. There's nothing firm or concrete about it, so I don't know why they would have voted to concentrate more power in the federal government's hands, unless it really is an attempt to undermine Western separation before it can really catch fire. Honestly, I think we should be considering all options. We should be threatening to leave because Quebec has done so well by constantly threatening to leave. And we should be deploying the powers that Quebec has used so many times to their benefit. We should be deploying those powers in the Western provinces to do the same thing. Blanchett said that the Western provinces would somehow have to prove our distinctness, that we have a distinct culture and society, before he or Canada could allow us to consider separatism. What a hypocrite. We are very unique in the West. I lived in Ontario most of my life, and coming out here, I can see the uniqueness. This is a place, particularly Saskatchewan, where the farmers run everything, where the rural areas run things. That's very different, very distinct from most of the other provinces in this federation. And that's just for starters. I think it's absurd that he would even weigh in and try to dictate what the other provinces can do. At the very least, we need to deploy the Quebec model here for our own benefit, because if we stick with Ottawa, we're just going to go down with the ship. Frank, you ruffled some feathers in that last one. Previous generations want their entitlements, and young Canadians want affordable homes and stable families. Immigration keeps wages low and home prices high. You don't understand. There is a shortage of working-age people in this country. The demographics are terrible because we stopped having enough children 40-plus years ago. So mass immigration is not the answer. Listen, this is the thing that pisses me off the most about the responses I've got to my videos and my tweets. This idea that people who have watched me for months and years came out of those videos thinking that I am an advocate for mass immigration when I literally spelled out that mass immigration is a failure. But I likewise, which they don't like, pointed out that the fertility rate is something you cannot ignore. You must reckon with 1.26 children per woman, and you must reckon with the fact that fertility's been below replacement for 40 years, that the white population or the European population, however you want to score it, was roughly the same in 1990 as it is today, except today's population is much older and exiting the workforce far quicker than the young population is entering the workforce. So you have this pyramid scheme known as an economy that requires growth in order to pay out all of those entitlements. So back to the chat and to the comment in particular. Previous generations want their entitlements. Well, part of the issue is those entitlements were never paid for to begin with. And governments, which previous generations elected, squandered those funds. So what's actually happening is that the generations who are in the workforce now have to prop up the entire pyramid. We're responsible for more and more economic activity to prop up that pyramid. And there's not enough people to fill out all the gaps in the labor force. So you must have some immigration. And I even said this in the video, and I said, what we need is an immigration system that puts stiff requirements on those who want to come in. Language requirements as a minimum, the ability to functionally use a toilet, to understand that garbage dumps exist, garbage cans exist, and that you need to put your refuse in those things or the place ends up turning into East India, like at a bare minimum. And we should be developing those requirements. And we need lower immigration, but we still, what we need to do, and I think this is what's come out of the last couple of days of conversations, because I knew as soon as I made that video I was going to be talking about it, probably for weeks. But it's a conversation that needs to happen, because as I was making the video, I didn't have any of the answers, but I have developed one. We need a stable population. We have to stabilize the population where it is right now. And in order to do that, we have to have immigration. Some amount of immigration. Zero is not going to cut it. Now, we can get rid of the TFW program. I'm all for that. We can stop the mass immigration. I'm all for that. We can deport the criminals that we brought in. I'm all for that. We can deport future criminals. I'm all for that. I'm all for stopping the mass importation of disabled immigrants. 1.6 million. I can't remember. It's in a previous video over, I don't know what the period is of years. I think it was 10 years. 1.6 million new Canadians who are permanently disabled. I think we need to stop that, because we can't afford the entitlements for the people for the system we're already trying to maintain, for the promises that we've already made to people who have lived here, generational Canadians. Why are we putting more people on the dole? I just want that to be clear. I'm not an advocate for the immigration system the way it is. I'm not an advocate for the temporary foreign workers program. I'm not an advocate for mass immigration. But I am realistic enough to understand that if we want to stabilize population, immigration is going to be a component of it. Because even if every fertile woman out there right now starts generating children, and then in the next 3 to 5 years, every single fertile woman has 3 children, we're actually 16 to 20 years, depending on how you want to score it, away from them entering the workforce. So we have the next 2 decades to navigate. Now, there are conversations I had this morning about how population instability, so a shrinking population just leads to the collapse of socialism. And that's true. And these are nice words. They compile well into a tweet. The problem is, what that actually means is chaos, social disorder, collapse, death, starvation, homelessness, ethnic warfare, internecine conflict. If you read history books and you understand that when the birth rate declines and you lean on mass immigration, if you study Rome, for instance, as the birth rate declines and there's less and less Roman citizens, they start expanding citizenship further and further out into the empire until by the end, there wasn't a single legion that wasn't dominated by non-Roman citizens. And what happened? Rome collapsed, the Dark Ages. So, you see, it sums up in a sentence very nicely, the Dark Ages collapse. But what it actually means on the ground is absolute chaos for your children, for my children, for everybody. So if we actually wanted to avoid the chaos, we have to develop some kind of plan. The answer is not the course we're on right now, because if we stay on the course we're on right now, in that same 20-year period, let's just pick that as an arbitrary number, in that same 20-year period, the population of Canada grows to somewhere between 55 and 60 million. And in that same period of time, native-born Canadians get pretty close to becoming a minority. Not just white Canadians or Native American Canadians, but also Canadian, multi-generational Canadians that immigrated here in the waves of 1980 and 1990 and 2000. Their children, who speak impeccable English, who dress like us, talk like us, they just have different skin pigments or different shapes of their eyes, they lose out too. So this is, if we stay on that course, we probably still end up with some kind of social collapse and calamity, but we have all kinds of ethnic warfare. For everybody's benefit, we need some kind of stability. We need to stabilize the population. Hi, Frank. You aren't wrong about anything. I wouldn't go that far, Gwen. I am wrong often enough. The lifetime of taxes saved by Alberta and Saskatchewan, like 40%, would make everyone in Saskatchewan and Alberta immediately 51% richer. Absolutely. So, but I mean, you would still have to pay for services. So if we go the independence route, we're not sending the money to Ottawa. So there isn't this huge administration and bureaucracy that's siphoning a portion of that money off, administering it, and sending it back. You eliminate that. But you're still going to have to expand, to some degree, government here to cover those areas that the federal government is covering now. And we can probably do it much more efficiently. Local government tends to be, not in every case, tends to be more efficient than centralized, massive, over huge geographic scale government. So that savings, a portion of that savings would have to go back out in services. It's just the way it is. But it would be much more efficient and much better off. Hit the like button, folks. Show Frank some appreciation. Indeed. Thank you, Gina. I never say the words I'm supposed to say. Have you stocked up on gunpowder yet, Frank? Yes. The question you should ponder, Frank, why do previous generations feel entitled to young Canadians and future generations' prosperity? You can't expect young people to fund their oppression. Okay, Sheridan, Forbes? Sheridan? I don't think I've ever seen the name Sheridan before. They feel that they paid for everything that they're entitled to through a lifetime of taxation, through working. See, that's another layer of the problem. There's a lot of people who didn't work the entire time. There are people that stopped working and exited the workforce due to injury and started collecting entitlements or supposed injury, because I knew enough of them growing up. People in their 40s that exited the workforce and were collecting workers' compensation and other type work-related benefits from the taxpayer that could still work, but they had just found a way to defraud the welfare system. So, like, there's a whole pile of people who are going to be entitled to old age security and the guaranteed income supplement and all these other things that didn't actually work the entire way. But those who did think that their contribution is enough to cover the entitlements. But there's so many different ways to pick that apart, one of which would be life expectancy was much diminished decades ago when these systems were designed than it is now. So it came up in the stream I did with Clyde on Friday that when the Harper government tried to raise the age of retirement from 65 to 67, the memory of that was one of the reasons he lost the election. But that was trying to address the fact that Canadians live far longer than they did when the social safety net was dreamt up. So there is this idea, just to address the question directly, that those who are entitled have already paid their way. And that's not accurate. What you said about younger generations and the current economic activity propping that up is absolutely correct. Now, it's not just, and this is a thing that people got to, as I was saying, that it was all entitlements and it was all the boomers that are responsible for collapsing the economy. And I never said that at all. We got a whole department called Global Affairs Canada that we should just shut down because we can't afford global affairs. We have to afford our own affairs. So, like, people hear one thing and they run with it. And it drives me nuts because this subject, this birth rate subject, this immigration subject, this economic viability of entitlements and the economy subject is very complex. And you kind of have to tease it apart before you put it all back together so that you can come up with some kind of cohesive solution that doesn't lead to total societal collapse. Because I don't want that. I don't want that for my kids. I don't know how people can just shrug it off and be like, socialism will collapse. Well, Canada's a socialist country. So if socialism collapses, that means the country collapses. And that means good people and bad people, bad actors and good actors, all suffer the exact same fate as the boat goes down. The people who are bailing water drown just as much as the people sitting in the back thinking they're safe on the back of the boat as the front goes down. And chat just jumped ahead. I watch you at 1.25 sped up. try it, you come across much more enthusiastic and passionate. Well, I had to slow down talking because people were complaining. Oh, my goodness. Okay, I caught up. As long as 2 provinces and a pipeline, there is nothing that the government can do about it. If Alberta leaves, PP will lose his seat again. He's going to get it. There's no doubt that he's going to get it. All paths lead to central banking. Yeah, private money. That's a whole other rabbit hole. I did my part. I had 1 child. And good for you for having 1 child. Like, at the individual level, any children are welcome, but you need a 2.1 fertility rate, 2.1 children per woman. Anything below that, and so basically what that translates to is every woman has to have 2 children, and the 10th one has to have 3. But when everybody's doing the one and done routine, which is the majority now, if they have children at all, it's like one and done. I'm not having another one. Personally, I don't get it. After we had our first one, I asked my wife right after she gave birth to my son, do you want to do another one? And she's like, yeah. I mean, not today. Not today, but I definitely want to do it again, so it's not just down to, there's this idea that it's expensive. It's only as expensive as you make it. And some people will argue that until they're blue in the face, but they come up with things like, well, how do you pay for college? How do you pay for vacations? How do you pay for hockey? None of this stuff matters. Trade school ain't that expensive, and you start making money pretty quick. And trades are where it's at, folks. Social studies degrees and bachelors of fine arts aren't going to get you anywhere. You don't need to. I mean, that was a whole thing that came out of the boomer generation, was you have to go to school for 18 years, and that's the path to success. Well, it doesn't work. A university education or a college education doesn't equal success anymore. But getting into the trades and doing things with your hands still equals success. I tried for 7 kids. I have 3 living. God bless you, CJ. There are people, and that's another thing too, there are people out there who can't have kids or have immense problems with kids, and I see that, and this is a problem too. It's hard to have a conversation without a whole pile of preamble. So, like, if you had issues having kids, you can't have kids. You tried and you failed for whatever reason, health problems, whatever. What I'm saying doesn't apply to you, because a higher birth rate in the fertile population, generally speaking, makes up for those what do you call it? I don't want to call it a statistical. For those people who have problems. The issue is that in the healthy, capable, fertile portion of the population, people are choosing not to have kids. And they're choosing not to have kids. There's this idea that it's too expensive. That's just one layer. There's this idea, you're taught in high school that having children will ruin your life. And I went to high school in the 90s, and we were taught that. They had this doll baby that they sent everybody home with that was screaming and crying all night and carrying on to dissuade you. And the idea and the justification was it was to dissuade you from teenage pregnancy, to be very careful and to be controlled. I don't even think the notion back then was to destroy the idea of having a family, but it was to just be a little bit more ready, maybe a little bit more mature. Hollywood used to put out shows in the 1990s still, like Family Matters, where you had Carl Winslow and his wife, and they had 3 children. They used to put out shows like Roseanne, and I can't remember the husband's name, but they had DJ and the 2, Becky, and what was the other one's name? Darlene. Why do I remember these stupid things? I remember so many stupid things. My brain is just full of useless information. The point being, all of these sitcoms promoted healthy family dynamics and healthy demography. And then it disappeared. It just went away. And all of a sudden you had gay couples with 1 kid. You had shows coming out where there's no kids whatsoever. So like the pop culture, like the Marvel Universe, for instance, there's no kids. there's no babies, or there's one thrown in as an exception. All the cinema, all the media isn't showing you healthy demographics. So the education system, feminism, the hedonism of the LGBTQ movement, and the vast concern with the acronym brigade, none of that creates a mentality to want to pursue healthy family dynamics. And it affected me. I started way late. I'd have way more kids today if we had started younger. But we were convinced that it might break us, that we weren't ready for it. Like, we had all of these doubts and concerns and everything else. And it started the day we brought Junior home. The realization that all of it was a lie, that it was totally feasible and that you could do it. And then it was the best time of my life and remains the best time of my life. 3 out of the 4 members of the household now have got the sniffles. The youngest one, she had a bit of a fever, and then my son, he got a bit of a fever. And what it led to was 3 nights in a row now, Junior and I have been camping out. So we got his little bed, and then I got a bed, the spare room bed, and we're camping out in the spare room. And his fever went away like 2 days ago, but we've been camping out. There's nowhere, and this is the point I'm trying to make, there's nowhere in the world I would rather be than in those campouts. I'm reading my books. I'm reading a book on the history of the Sask Party and how it came into being. I'm reading another book on the Third Reich and the rise of Hitler by the name of Ian, I can't remember his last name. I don't like it. I mean, I'm a big, when it comes to the history of the Second World War or the Third Reich, I'm still a big fan of William Shirer. He was an American journalist, and he wrote his book in 1952 or 54. It's still, in my mind, the best, most authoritative read that you can have about that period in history. Because I find the more modern works that are covering that time are too consumed with making political statements, and it just drives me nuts. It's like, we know it was bad. You can dispense with that and just kind of, I'm looking for a history that tells me what is. Like, I find it interesting that Shirer wrote in the 1950s and was able to write more freely than somebody who's writing today. That the generation that actually went over there and fought and beat Nazi Germany, they came back and they created shows like Hogan's Heroes, which were about Nazis. And like, we can't even honestly look at history in 2025, but in the 1950s, they had a much better grasp, and they're the ones that bled and died fighting the war. Anyway, I completely digress. There's nowhere better. Like having my family is the best thing I've ever done. I've done a lot of partying. I've experienced a lot of life. It pales in comparison to the time I spend with my kids. And I wish there was a way for young couples or younger couples to understand that before they have their first child. And and I know it's not for everybody. I mean, there's some bad people out there who should not have children. That's always been true all throughout time. But good, conscientious people, couples who are thinking about it but are filled with doubt, if they have that first one, it unlocks the door to understanding. And you understand that it's not the big deal and not the destruction of your life that you might have been taught it was. But you need to have the first one first, right? To get through all the programming. The best start would be straying away from bringing people here from countries with the highest rates of incest. Another thing we're finding out about that is a strain on our medical system for sure. There are the consequences of diminished IQ through intermarriage. Now you can break that down regionally too. It's not, so some of the places that we're bringing our people in from, so India, a lot of East Indians, it's not the entire Indian subcontinent that has an incest problem. It's pretty regionally concentrated actually within certain ethnic groupings within India itself. The issue we find Well, the main issue is mass immigration in general and not specific immigration. So, I mean, you could put an immigration requirement on it that you understand when you come into the country that you're not to be marrying your sister or your brother or your first cousin or your uncle, that we kind of frown on polygamy here. And, like, there's nothing wrong with putting those requirements for entry. Have you seen the East Indian burgers only available at A&W's in Ontario? No, I'm not in Ontario. I don't know if I'll ever be in Ontario again. 2009 babies are a bigger group than the babies that was in 2004. Well, okay, so for sure, things can recover and change, so you can have a higher birth rate, and like it's not static. But if you chart it over the last 40 years, it's down. It's straight down. It's a meteoric crash in the birth rate. It can recover. Trends can reverse. But we have to reverse the trend first. We need to reverse it here. And in the meantime, we have to keep the wheels on the bus. Because I think it might be a good idea, too, for people to understand that flipping a switch in your house and turning on the lights is actually a luxury. It's not a basic. We call it basics, but we shouldn't. Because for the vast majority of human history, you didn't have that luxury. The price of an hour's reading light, that's another thing you can chart, is the cost of 1 hour of light in darkness and how it has declined to the point rapidly in the last 100 years where it is so cheap, it's impossible to measure. It's basically impossible to measure, even in cents. It's so cheap to have light. But it's a relative luxury. And it takes a highly sophisticated society to keep the lights on. You need a lot of people for that one simple action of flipping a switch. Also, indoor plumbing, sewage systems that work, dumps that not only you can take your refuse to, but that have leachate systems in place so that you don't completely pollute the groundwater. Air conditioning, which I mean, even I think the statistic is 67 or 70% of Canadians have air conditioning. We take a lot of this stuff for granted. Hot water on demand, folks, out of a hot water tank. You don't even think about it. It's just there. If you're a homeowner, you think about it when you have to replace your tank because you didn't maintain the thing, which, by the way, if you maintain your hot water tank and you actually clean out the sediment and you make sure your elements are clean and you change out your elements, you can have the same hot water tank forever. But we treat them as disposable, but that's a complete other subject. You don't have to replace your water tanks all the time. But you don't think about hot water coming out of your shower or out of your tap as a luxury. But you should. You really should. And there's so many other things that are just modern artifacts that really, even though there's few people alive that haven't experienced them, because our memories are fading of the time before, we shouldn't take those things for granted. And if you don't want those things to go away, because it's surprisingly rocky, those things, they rest on rocky foundations. They require people to maintain, and you have to get those people from somewhere. So if you stopped having babies 40 years ago, you don't have those people growing up and entering the workforce into those sophisticated jobs. Now, this is not just a North American or European problem. This is a problem that's hitting Asia, too. The one-child policy in China was the biggest disaster they ever... It is the biggest disaster, the regime. And this is another thing. We often call the Chinese regime communist. But I could easily have a conversation about how the Chinese regime isn't communist. It's National Socialist. Because they're not about international communism. They're about national communism, an ethnic-based communism, a Chinese-centric communism. So it's actually National Socialism. They're a fascist. They're more of a fascist state than they are communist. But that's another discussion that you can have. The one-child policy is a huge disaster, and it's going to continue to be a disaster for China because it's the same thing. You can't solve it today. You can have babies today, but they don't help you for 15 to 20 years. The other thing that they did was when Mao came along and they did the whole turning the soil. I don't know if you guys know about that, but they decided that in their infinite wisdom to increase fertility. This is what happens when city planners and people who are divorced from an agrarian society make decisions about how you're going to grow food. They dug the soil down 2 feet and they flipped it over. They buried their topsoil and they all starved. And this culture that they have of eating insects, because in many places they do, is an artifact of that decision because they ran out of all the other food. And believe it or not, you'll eat bugs too when you're starving to death. But like the point is, to keep the lights on and keep society turning, you need bodies. There is and always will be a huge need for the trades. One job that will never be obsolete is a mortician. That's for sure. Immigration from countries that can assimilate and actually contribute. Sully 1D says that. And that's true. And I actually think I think people from every country can assimilate. You have to tell them what they're assimilating to. And if you're looking for common ethnic or cultural roots, the issue there is there's nobody to get from Europe because they have the same declining birth rate problem we have. So there's only certain areas of the planet where they have a high enough birth rate to provide working age, predominantly men, which is what all these other nations are after, to prop up the vast entitlement system. And of course they're doing it wrong. Again, I don't know how to convey this point without constantly repeating myself. I'm not advocating for the current system of mass immigration, but I am trying to highlight the reality that in order to keep society functional at some level, to stabilize the population, immigration is going to be a component, and there's only so many places in the world you can get immigrants from. I'm pissed, CJ Cannon, I'm pissed that 2 of my kids don't want kids. Big problem. I talked to a lot of people about that. And they only think they don't want kids because they think that the life that they're living, the selfish, self-centric life that they're living is all there is, and that it will be too much of a burden. Maybe they live life for a little while longer without children. Hopefully they change their mind and decide to have one, because if they're good people, that's the gateway. And you realize that it actually makes your life better, makes you a better person, and fills your life with, it's the best party. Every single day is a party. It really is. And like, it's work for sure, but it's joy. It's joy every day. Neil Murphy, come on over, girls, I'll service you. That's only the first step, my friend. The next step is actually raising them. If you ask Grok what percentage of immigrants that come to Canada and stay, the number is high that leave. I wouldn't rely on Grok, or Gork, as you spelt it, Arthur Me, as an arbiter of truth. You should never rely on AI for that. It's a tool to derive your own conclusions. But there is a large number of immigrants that leave because the cost of living is so high here. Many of the ones that come that have money decide to leave because their money can buy them a better quality of life somewhere else. Record numbers of refugee claims from foreign students. Yeah. I mean, now that's the immigration system failing miserably. And it's one of those things that has to be cleaned up because refugee claimants, of course, get subsidized by Canada. TFWs, of course, get subsidized by the taxpayer. There is a component of immigration that doesn't get those subsidies, but we have so many wide open doors to take advantage of because the immigration system sucks. But it doesn't change the fact that we have a birth rate problem and a young people problem, and we're going to need some kind of immigration. The debate for me is 100% about how we do it. Jane Sam says, good afternoon. I am here to tell you that Frank is right about a lot of things. I don't like holding myself up as right about things. I try to be right. I try to find what is correct. It's not so much about me looking right. I want to actually be right. Or it's not about me. It's about figuring out I almost swore there. It's about figuring out what's actually going on. That's what I want. I don't want to sit here and pontificate and lecture people in the wrong direction. I don't even want to lecture people. I want to figure out what is, and then I want to talk about it. And then I want to try and figure out what the solution is so that we can move society forward and have a good conversation and grow the channel that way. Like, one of the reasons I do things the way that I do things is because that's my intention. You know, I'm not consumed by the idea of growth of the channel or growth of following. It's like, I just want to do good work as best I can. And sometimes, and seldomly do I meet my own standard. At the end of a video, when I go to upload it, I'd say 80% of the time, I don't feel 100% good about it. And the 20% of the time, I do feel good about it and feel like I really did a good job. Those are the videos that don't go anywhere. It's the ones that I feel suck. Those are the ones that work. I don't know how that works. You're not wrong about everything, but everyone is wrong at some things. C'est la vie. Yeah, for sure. Everybody's wrong some of the time. My kids are all homeschooling. The system is brainwashing them. Homeschooling's awesome. Like, it's literally awesome. Depending on which province you live in, it can be awesomer. Saskatchewan has built into the provincial set of laws protections for homeschoolers. So, like, guarantees. Actually has I don't know if it's called a homeschooler's bill of rights. I can't remember the name of the legislation, but it's pretty comprehensive. And there's official tax support. So if you make the decision to homeschool, on your property taxes, you have your education levy. And I think that's pretty consistent across the board, whatever province you're in. In Saskatchewan, you get some of that back. So if you have, in my case, with the two kids that I have, I pretty much get the entire education levy back from the government of Saskatchewan to help pay for curriculums for the kids, because we homeschool too. There's a thriving homeschool community in Saskatchewan with very stable, very good demographics. Everybody has two kids or more. I mean, I don't know anybody that has one child that's in the homeschooling circuits. There's always something going on. Tours of factories, tours of farms, interactive tours too, not just looking at stuff, but actually doing things. We recently attended a sheet metal factory doing custom fabrication. There was an event that was at a gravel pit and an asphalt mixer, which was awesome. The kids loved it. They were just running up and down all the big dirt piles. There's just such a big, thriving homeschooling community. So if you're considering going that way and you have a family, look at Saskatchewan. There's a lot going on here for homeschoolers. Like, it's a fairly well-protected thing here. It's wonderful. Oh, man, the chat just skipped forward again. I'm going too slow is the problem. Jeepers. I really am going too slow. I'm scrolling up. The attitude towards Schmashmortion? I don't even know what that is. Tells everything we need to know about how Canadians view families and people. It's an indicator. It's a values problem. I agree with that. I have no idea what Smashmortion is. Let's support more single mothers. No. We need, that's another thing. The family law and the way it discriminates against dads, and the way that society has created an environment where dads are viewed as expendable, like they have no real impact on their families or no value. The science is settled. The presence of a father figure in a family life is a direct indicator of the level of empathy children will grow up to have as adults. And the less father you have, the more chance you have for criminality and a lack of empathy development. That's a fact. So we need more moms and dads. We need more stable families. And we need to understand first, I mean, it's dual. So it's not just that fathers are looked at as expendable and disposable. It's also that stay-at-home moms are looked at as failures, when in reality, they're literally doing the absolute best job they could possibly do, because no one nurtures like mom. And there's no job more valuable than keeping the human race alive. I mean, that's job number one, is propagation and keeping this whole thing moving forward. So this idea that trading a career, becoming a tax slave, and giving your kids to a daycare and the public education system to raise them for you while you go and work so that you can be taxed to death is some kind of value proposition, is a non-starter. And there are cheaper places. That's another thing that Saskatchewan has going for it. You can get a 3-bedroom house here. It's going to be a fixer-upper, but you can get it below $100,000. There's lots of them. If you want a half-decent place, $100,000 to $200,000 is your price point. You want a practical palace in small-town Saskatchewan in a lot of places, $300,000 is going to get you there. Like, if you're looking at it from Ontario, and as much as Ontario, the property market in Ontario is collapsing. I was looking at it last night. I was looking at recent sales in Brantford and around the GTA. Everything's selling below asking now. The process, the unwinding is already starting, and it's crazy because more and more people are coming in, and housing prices aren't rapidly coming down because so many people bought their houses at high points and are underwater on their mortgages. So they can't afford to sell out, and they haven't gone bankrupt yet. And the people that are being packed in can't afford to buy anything either. So it's like it is a whole constellation of problems, a whole constellation of bills coming due at the exact same time. But that being said, Saskatchewan's cheap, and it is philosophically far more conservative, far more common sense. In general, the culture here, and kinder, friendlier, gentler. You go to the grocery store, everybody's talking to you. People make eye contact. They smile at you. They break out into random small talk and conversations. Sometimes you can be at the store and you get stuck in an aisle talking to somebody you don't even know for an hour. And it's wonderful. It's wonderful. Baby bumps everywhere, kids running around. It's wonderful. There's some really cool places in Saskatchewan. But leave your liberalism and leave all your Ontario baggage at the door, because it's already here. The infection's already here. It's just not as advanced. I'd personally like to see it stay that way. You couldn't have family ties with Michael J. Fox today. It'd be construed as racist. You are right. And the day that a production studio figures out that that's what people want, start making masculine figures again, male masculine figures, not effeminate ones, start making female characters that are nurturing. And, it's funny. I was talking about this the other night about how we used to write stories where males dominated the heroic figure angle, but women alongside them were doing heroic things, but they weren't built up like butches. They were still feminine, they were still soft, but they were still doing some really cool things. We stopped telling good stories because all the stories are becoming politicized. The day a studio figures out and decides they want to make money again, they'll start telling traditional stories, and they're going to make all kinds of money. It's the same with video games. The day that they start making video games again that aren't just promoting political narratives is the day they start making money. I can't wait to, I can't believe it hasn't happened yet. Like, do they hate money? Do the production studios hate money? Do they hate viewers? Do they hate audience? Do they hate viability? By the way, the drink of choice this afternoon is Evia. I'm really rocking it hard. Hello, Patriots, says Firecracker. Neil Murphy says, I have a fur baby. No, you don't. You have a dog. They're not fur babies. They're not babies. They're not your kids. There's a pet peeve that'll probably piss off somebody in the chat. Your pets aren't kids. I see this all the time, and it drives me nuts. You hear people in restaurants talking about their kids, and they're talking about their dogs. Jeez. And that's another thing. If you want to have a kid or you want to have a pet, you want to have a pet dog, go have a kid. They're much better than pets. They're much more complex. They're much more fun. And they're much more rewarding than a dog that you have to pick up its poop 3 times a day. They're not your babies. Fighting age men are willing to work for less. Silver spoons in mouths. Arthur Me says, look at most kids now. My God, back talking to their parents. If we would do that growing up, you did that to mom, would take her slipper to you so fast. It didn't know it hit you, or your dad took. Yeah, it's funny. I don't hit my kids, but I don't tolerate that either. Junior, sometimes, he'll get a bit mouthy with his mom. I intervene right away. I'm like, you don't backtalk your mom. You come and backtalk me. I'll argue with you all day, and I'll set you straight too. But your mom, she's honored, she's respected. You don't lip your mom. And he straightens out. And I don't understand. Maybe it's the fact that we're present more, because I think you got to take into account and consideration that a lot of kids these days are craving attention any way they can get it. I've talked about before how, we take the kids out to a public park. And this is true in Saskatchewan as much as it is in Ontario. And if you're there at the right time of day, the daycares will show up with all the kids. And those kids swarm you. And they're begging you, push me on a swing, catch me coming down the slide. They're begging you for attention, for adult-focused attention. Because the daycare workers are all on their cell phones, living their own lives, doing their own thing. While these kids are just left to their own auspices, and they're so attention-starved. So what's a kid that's stuck in daycare or stuck in public school and not getting adult-focused attention, one of the ways that they can get that attention is by acting out. Now, maybe that's the reason. Maybe my kids don't have to act out because they've got our attention. And I would honestly, and I knew this moving out here because I'm so kind of deep in the bush that there's not a lot of employment opportunity. But I knew that I was going to be trading time for money with my kids. Because I think time is more valuable. And I'm more than willing to go into debt if I have to preserve that time that I've got with them. And I think it bears fruit. Like, my kids have always slept good at night. They're like any kids. When they're sick, they're awake, or some nights it's too hot, so they toss and turn. They need care and they need attention, but they've always been so good. They're courteous. They're outgoing when they're out in public. They talk to everybody. They know how to ask for help. They're smart. They're sympathetic. They're empathetic. And I do wonder if it's just down to attention, that they're not stuck away from mommy and daddy all the time, if that's the difference. And you can, and I know that in a lot of places it's so expensive, but you can vote with your feet and you can move to a place where life is still cheap and there's work. Believe it or not, it exists in Canada. I live in one of those places. I watched a vid on YouTube yesterday, Europe, the Last Battle. If that's true, that's crazy. I don't know. I haven't seen it yet. I've heard of it. I'm disabled and went to school and learned computer sciences. Now I run a computer repair business. Right on, Mark Steves. That's awesome. I was on WSIB, is what they used to call it back in Ontario, when I got hit by a forklift at my weekend job, busted up my knee really good. And I couldn't work, lost my business, and it was bad. So I went through a couple surgeries, and while I was going through those surgeries, I was on WSIB, and I remember I got back to work, and if it was a situation where if I quit that job, I lost some of my ability to make claims against the knee injury. And I still quit it anyway because it was such a dead end. But then when I went to the farm, I periodically re-injured my knee, and I just had to adjust. I had to change the way I worked, had to change the way I went about things, had to take it easy when things were getting sore. But I couldn't substitute the value of working and making money. I found being dependent on money coming through the mail was soul destroying. So I would really rather avoid that if I can. And that's not to say that some people don't eat it, but I'm not judging anybody. I know from my experience, though, I felt terrible. And some of the people in my life made me feel terrible, too, even though I was legitimately injured. And maybe that's actually a good thing in the end, because it motivated me to get moving and solve my problems. The same people who hated me then hate me now because I'm still living a very different life. But I digress. You also have to want that first child, though, to change your mind. Otherwise, the first only child often is neglected. Yeah, there is that too. There is that too. There are people who just are not suited to it. But I don't know, man. Like, I mean, there's a lot of people who've had really bad, unfortunate lives growing up, and they grow up to become very functional people who raise families and love their children dearly. So you're not trapped by your upbringing. A bad upbringing doesn't necessarily equate to a bad outcome, because we do have agency, we do have free will, we can choose to get over the past and that sort of stuff. Father of a son, Gelford, father of a son that I'll never see, father of a daughter who stabbed me straight in the heart with a rusty blade. I've given enough. There are a lot of men in rough boats, man. A lot of men who never see their kids, had their kids taken from them, and it's tragic. Why does Frank appear 25? Chadwick Canuck. I missed the long hair. You need glasses, bro. I don't think I look 25 at all. I missed the long hair too, though. In a way, so I'm on the fence about it, because short hair is so much easier to maintain. It's so much better when I'm sleeping because I don't have hair in my face all the time. It's easier to clean. It's easier to maintain. But I like the look of long hair, and I like the way I feel with long hair. So I don't know. Maybe it'll come back, because I don't know. This is all right, but I don't know about 25, though. You should see me when I shave, though. Pure baby face. AWR Canada says, we don't think of them as luxuries until they have to be fixed, replaced, or we lose them. It's true. It's true. The second the lights go out, all of a sudden you appreciate electricity. The second you lose running water, all of a sudden you appreciate it. Like, if you've ever had to live, because I've actually experienced life without running water, internal plumbing, and it's not nice. You know, you kind of want to get back to that right away. I am so far behind. I have Indian housemates, newly from India, not a war zone, so not asylum claimants. Live in a nice rent room. Took me 5 years to save up for the same. They have a car, which I don't drive. I skate. There's a lot of reasons why that could be. I mean, there's a lot of businesses. There's a lot of businesses that have no custom. There's no clients going in and out the doors, but there's all kinds of people working them. We have a huge money laundering and drug industry in this country. Actually, I made a tweet about Gaganpreet Singh. Where was that? Alex Zoltan said, Gaganpreet Singh Randhawa, the only person publicly charged in connection to the largest and most sophisticated fentanyl and drug super lab in Canadian history, was denied bail. He remains in custody, which is rare in this country. Usually you get released. But the reason this man's in custody, maybe there's an ongoing investigation. Maybe there will be dozens of arrests. For those of you who don't know, this was like a $500 million super lab in BC that was busted, and only one guy has been charged. And I said, literally the most efficient man in world history. He does manufacture, he does distribution, he does laundering of proceeds, he provides the muscle. Gaganpreet did it all. But we know he didn't do it in isolation. It was heavily organized. And a lot of the people that would have been in that lab would have had the last name Singh. And in order to launder money and fill that money into the real economy, you have to have all kinds of semi-legit and legit businesses to launder cash payments through. Because BC casinos can't do it for them anymore, even though they were, because they had to put limits on it because people were walking in with bags of cash and rinsing it right through the casinos. This is Ebby's BC. They had to put some controls on that because it was so obvious and out of control. So I think there's a lot of businesses in Canada where there's a lot of money being laundered. Because when you have such a high degree of criminality and it makes up such a big portion of your GDP, it goes somewhere. Still lecturing on having kids. I'm not lecturing. I'm telling you what is. I'm telling you what is. Without babies, there's no future. Period. Even if you have mass immigration, you still have no future, no cohesive, stable future without babies. Now, this thing flashed forward. Greg, I believed that I didn't want children until I was 38 years old. Now I'm 41 and have an amazing son with my partner and have never been happier. Can't believe I wasted so long to figure it out. Brother Greg, I was 39 when I had my first. I mean, I'm part of the problem too. I mean, just because I had a couple, I wish I had more. And that's the thing. The programming gets us all, and it really is amazing. I also have an Iranian family of 3 living in my house who own a car and can afford to feed 3 without working. Landlord don't care who pays them. If it's the government, even better. I have to wonder how that works. Are they refugees? Because if they're refugees, they get more money. If they have 3, it's a family of 3, so they're going to be getting CCB for that kid, which is at least $6,000 a year if they're not working. There's definitely a social system magnet that comes along with Canada that draws people in. Fear and lack of faith make one afraid to bring children into this world. Well, that's another argument. People say that the world is too rocky a place. The way things are going, it's too terrible, so I don't want to bring children into the world. It's an argument I hear all the time. But my retort to that is, even with all the problems that I talk about on my channel and that are talked about every single day, there's never been a better time in world history, recent world history, to be alive. It's the most prosperous. It's the most peaceful. Since the end of the Second World War, you have to almost go back to the Roman Empire to find a similar period of relative peace. Now, you might say, yeah, there's still conflict in the world, but as a proportion of the global population, far fewer people are dying in conflict, especially in the West, than they did in the past. And ultimately, if you're choosing to get up every single day and live your life, if life is good enough for you to live, it's probably good enough to pass on. And honestly, it just sounds like a bunch of excuse making to me. It's just one more easy excuse to not have children. And really, you're making excuses to not do the thing that literally, if you're a good thinking person, nothing's going to make you happier than having a family. Literally nothing. But anyway, we need to revisit, because I've been completely distracted here. I've been talking for an hour and 10 minutes. We need to revisit the mission today. Today's mission is to get people, if you're so inclined, if you search my name over on Google, it pops up this info card, which says that I'm a politician and my party is the People's Party of Canada. We all know how I feel about the People's Party in this chat. If you've been with me long enough, this is incorrect. So if you want to do me a favor, click Suggest Edits. Tell them I'm not a politician. Tell them I'm not in the People's Party. Tell them I'm a commentator, philosopher, content creator, idiot, whatever you want. You can tell them I'm an idiot. I'm fine with that. And then I'm not in the People's Party. Might help get this info card updated or deleted. I'd rather just not have an info card, but it's a continuing nuisance and problem for me that I do have it. Back to the chat, because that's what it's all about. I do these live streams because I want to talk to the chat, and then I only read a handful of comments. Oh, we got another one in here. Talk about the real enemy, the Jews. You Jew people. So I have Jewish friends. They're some of the best, most supportive people I've ever met in my life. And there are, in order to believe that the Jews run everything, you have to ignore all of the non-Jews in high positions of power doing all kinds of evil in this world, or you have to think that they're all puppets of the Jews, the master Jew. I tend to look at things individualistically. So I'm a Canadian. I live in Canada. I ask myself, who's setting fire to my institutions? Who's burning up my streets? Who's smashing windows? Who is actively trying to carve out a Khalistani republic out of the soil under my feet as a first generation immigrant that doesn't even speak the language or have any idea where Canada comes from? Who is promoting their ethnic agenda through violent means, ethnic, religious, cultural agenda in Canada without concern for Canadian citizens? Who's building police stations on my soil? Who's infiltrating my politics, buying up my politicians? Who is gaining outsized influence? Who is my government supporting? Because sometimes they pay lip service to Israel, and I think that's something too. Israel and Zionism are separate from Jews in general. So, like, everybody wants me to talk, or not everybody. There's a certain segment of the population that just wants to blame the Jews for everything. And I think it's just one of those simplistic, moronic talking points. Everybody wants to claim that one thing and one thing alone is the magic bullet that can solve all of the world's problems. Like this conversation around immigration and mass immigration, or the birth rate, requires a lot of details and a lot of nuance to actually get a grasp on it. I don't think you can blame any one individual ethnic group for all of the world's problems, but it doesn't stop people from doing it. The state is not a dad, blank giver says. Very true. It is a poor substitute. The state is not a dad, and the state is not a mom. The state is not a parent. The state's supposed to build roads and provide infrastructure and create an even playing field for everybody. It's not supposed to raise your children for you. Hi, Gina. I have 2 doggies, but that was while I had 4 kids as well. Great. Trifecta. Your kids are still not, or your pets are still not babies. They're not kids. They're not fur babies. Ugh, that term. I mean, you go ahead and call them whatever you want, but ugh, fur baby. Ugh. A dog can't cut your lawn for you. Well, a female dog, if it pees all over your grass, can certainly kill it. And then you don't have to cut it anymore. You can just have all these yellow spots all over your yard. So they can do that. Fur babies aren't taking care of you in your old age. No, they're not. But sometimes they're nice companions for people who are in their advanced years. My cat and dog will vote. They probably will, especially if you're an American. You can tell how far behind I am here. Holy jumping. A forklift ran over my toes. I can relate. You don't have any toes left. It's a miracle if you do. Forklifts are pretty heavy. The one that hit me was fully loaded. So I was at a water fountain, and he was driving full out with a full load of PE, which is like these. So the big boxes are called Gaylords. And so he had a Gaylord, 2 Gaylord stacks, so 2 a skid with a Gaylord and a skid with a Gaylord filled with plastic pellets, this PE stuff. And he was going 30 kilometers an hour. He hit me on my left side and hit me so hard that it spun me, and my right knee went up through one of the structural 2x4s in the skid. It smashed that 2x4 lengthwise. And I remember when my knee hit it, I heard this ungodly pop come out of my knee. And then I hit the ground. He hooked my left leg, And he kept moving me into a different section of the factory because he didn't stop right away. So he drags me, and then he finally comes to a stop. And I remember laying there on the floor, and the only thought I had in my head is, I'm going to get up and kill this guy. I'm going to beat him to death as soon as I get on my feet. And that's what I tried to do. I put my good leg, which was my left leg, I put that under me, and I brought my right leg up, and I went to stand up. And all I was thinking about when I brought my right leg around was how I was just going to punch right through this man's face. And when I tried to put weight on my right leg, I felt a pain unlike anything I've ever felt in my life to that point, and I collapsed like there was nothing to me. I was an amoeba on the ground. I was completely useless. Instead of killing the guy, I had to solicit his help to get me out of there and get me to the hospital. But there's very few things that have less give than a forklift. Mark Steves, now I work with my boys, handed down the business and ensured their future. Now I work for them. Right on, Mark. That's awesome. You know, my dad, he never had any money. To the day he died, actually. When he died, I was left with a bill, not an inheritance. But he left me, there were a bunch of tools and life skills. I never begrudged Dad. I never even think about it, that there was no money left at the end of it. In fact, so most of my time from 23 to 28 when he died was spent trying to figure out how to keep both of us, but he started having heart attacks. So I moved to the farm, which was owned by his ex-wife, to help him out. And then I realized that he was in financially really bad shape, and I wasn't going to be able to leave. And so I spent those years desperately trying to figure out how to keep the lights on and just keep the bills paid. And we had our conflicts, but the things that I remember are the skills he taught me. I'm actually looking at a picture of him right now. Are the skills he taught me. And the times we spent together working, because he had his businesses. He had an underground contracting business where he maintained Bell telephone lines, and buried the individual drop services to the houses, and dug pits to put in the big 500 pair of wires and all this other stuff. And we did a lot of work together. And then we worked the farm together. And I learned all of these things by absorbing them from him. And I still look back on him as the best friend I ever had, because he gave me skills and experiences and memories, which are far more valuable than money. And I wouldn't trade working with Dad for those years for any other thing that I can remember. And I'm hoping that as I move forward through time, that I'm able to establish that working relationship with my son and my daughter, that we can build something together. And we'll see where it goes, because they're going to be their own people. They're going to live their own lives. They're going to want to do their own thing. But it would be kind of cool, a man can dream, that we can work together and build something together. And in that way, you know, we can still be together until I'm back in the ground. God willing that I live long enough to get there. But I would absolutely love to build a thriving, successful business with my kids. That's awesome, Mark. I love reading stuff like that. Mark Shelton says, all right, my friend Beverly tells me it's time to eat. Goodbye, everybody. Canadian independence. Enjoy your meal, Mark. Freedom takes work, for sure. It does. Kenzie says, catch up, Frankie boy. I'm working on it. Frank, I have an environmental question right out of left field. Why would we be entertaining forcing electric over hydrogen? What is the fixation on unsustainable energy? God, I don't know, man. Established interests, money, the climate cult, the fact that it is entirely a pipe dream. Like, there is I don't know. I don't actually know. There seems to be an obsession with self-destructive ideas within our governing institutions and within the institutions that do all the so-called thinking. And they're promoting ideas like net zero and the electrification of everything that are entirely unsustainable and will never work. We can't expand the electric grid fast enough. There probably isn't enough copper in the world. I don't know. I think hydrogen is more volatile, so the risk may be greater, but then again, I don't know about that either, because you ever see an electric car burn, it's not as though those can be easily put out. It's not as though they're perfectly safe either. I don't know. I honestly don't know. I'd have to think about that one. I haven't put much thought into that one. Chadwick Canuck says, I hurt my lower back 10 years ago. I waited 3.5 years to see a specialist. I love waiting to see a doctor. I think we all have that experience, like with that knee injury I've been talking about. When we were, I want to say it was 2018. Could have been 17. But I was still working the farm actively. And I hurt my knee. I don't even remember what the injury was because it happened so frequently. But I thought, maybe I need to seek medical advice to see where I'm at, because it'd been a long time. Like, I've got images of it, and they're really unhealthy to look at. My doctor, my last family doctor in Ontario, I went walking into his office one day with those images, and he's like, how is it you walk without a limp? Like, you shouldn't even be walking according to these images. And I'm like, I don't know. Most days it doesn't hurt me, because most days it doesn't. But I went to him and I said, I think I need an appointment with a specialist. And it was 1 year. So a year goes by. I take the train to Union Station in Toronto. I walk to the clinic, because by that point I'm fine, but I want to know what's going on. I walk to the clinic with my images in hand, and I hand them over to the doctor's aide. He punks them into the computer. He starts looking at them, and then the surgeon comes in, the professional knee guy, and he looks at me and he says, okay, what do you want? I said, well, I want your advice. And he's like, well, typically people don't come to me for advice. They want surgery. So what do you want? I said, I'm looking to get some kind of a diagnosis and opinion on what might be going on with my knee and what I might need. And he's like, but that's not what I do. I'm the surgeon. You tell me what you want, and I'll give you what you want. I'm like, I want your opinion. And he stormed out irritated and left me with his adjunct. I left that appointment with no more information than I walked in with, and an appointment for a year later. Because the adjunct's opinion was, maybe I needed surgery, but I was too young for a knee replacement and all this other stuff. And I basically left there thinking, I basically just don't need doctors. I'm going to live with this until I can't walk anymore. Luckily, that's not a problem at this point. But I couldn't believe the guy's attitude. Canadian healthcare. I wait a year to get yelled at by a surgeon because I don't know what to tell him about what surgery I want. I was supposed to come in there like you order in fast food. I need a number 1, please. That was the only option available to me. It was horrifying. That's one of the last times I've ever been to a doctor. Now, I had a good doctor back east, and I've got a good doctor here in Saskatchewan. He's great. I haven't seen him yet, but I do know him personally, so I know he's good. But I don't go near doctors unless I need them. And that's one of the reasons why. The doctor only cared to get paid for surgery, not advice. It certainly seemed that way. I'll never forget his face. He has slicked back hair. He was wearing a $300 shirt. He walked into the room and his buttons were undone halfway down his chest with his hair billowing out. He looked like he smelled good. You know what I mean? Looked like he smelled like cologne, and he was just so irritated that I asked for advice. I'm like, what kind of healthcare is this? Have you considered doing roundtable talks like Gonzalo Alira did? Yeah, so about that, I'm still... Okay, so tell me something about, dang, Frank, your diet. What happened? This happened. So from July to December, I dropped 50 pounds. And then in January, I'm like, okay, I'm going to start trying to make videos every day, every other day. I'm going to try and make regular content, and I'm going to really sit down. I'm going to be reading news. I'm going to be reading books. And I'm going to be really efficient with my time. And I'm going to take this professionally seriously. And that's what happened. I gained a lot of weight back. So I'm in the beginning of wrestling with that. I still fast, but like, you can fast for 3 or 5 days and you can make up for that pretty easy. But it's good for your heart. It's good for your cardiovascular health. It's good for a lot of things to fast periodically. It's probably what keeps me in the game. But the next chapter, and I've been realizing this in the last couple of weeks, the next chapter is I have to get all that stuff under. There's other stuff going on that I don't really want to get into, but like there's a lot of focus and attention that's going to come down to health. So that's what the next 6 months is going to be all about. But back to the question, have you considered doing roundtable talks like Gonzalo Lira did? We're going to start with StreamYard and getting other people in and having conversations. Part of the reason I wanted to do the stream is not to just tell everybody to go over and Google and search my name and then suggest edits and get that fixed. How's this been going? We've been at this for an hour and 26 minutes. Has it glitched? Has the audio gone off? Has the video sucked? Can you guys give me that feedback right now? Because that's my mission today, is actually getting feedback on how things look. When you are in ketosis, that's always being fasted. Yeah. No baked potatoes. Potatoes are amazing. They're like the best food ever. I love potatoes. Fried up in lard. I mean, can you tell? Any thoughts on the America Party being set up by Elon Musk? Yes. I think that there is a segment of MAGA that is deeply disappointed that Trump is not going to do anything about the spiraling debt problem in the United States. I think that Trump had to very carefully navigate the issue with Israel and Iran. I think he managed not to get sucked into a protracted war, which is a great thing. But domestically, so he's got a lot to do. Getting illegal immigration under control, which I need to do a video dedicated to that. Maybe I'll do that tomorrow because I really want to talk about it in more depth. But what's happening in the United States with illegal immigration and getting those people rounded up and out is probably the most important thing for their future that can possibly be done. And one of the worries I had with the involvement of the Americans in the Iran war, I shouldn't even be calling it past tense yet because I don't think it's past tense. I think it can still pop up anytime, was that it might derail the attention that's being paid to the number one problem, which is illegal mass immigration in the United States. Canada has a problem with legal mass immigration. The Americans have a problem with illegal mass immigration. But all that being said, Elon Musk, the America Party. I haven't read about the America Party yet. I haven't even read Elon's tweets about it. I know that it happened because it's popped up in my feed, but I haven't had a chance to even look at it. The issue is that if the United States does not get its fiscal house in order, it's just going to be a nightmare. It's going to be a continuing nightmare for everybody. $5 more trillion to the national debt is not sustainable. And I think too, one of the things that Trump does that I absolutely hate is that when his allies level any criticism at him, he just starts calling them names. So like Elon worked pretty hard for MAGA to get Donald Trump elected. He was pretty loyal. And then when he started publicly questioning the big, beautiful bill, all of a sudden Trump just attacked him mercilessly, started calling him wacky and doing all this other stuff. And that's what he does to every single person that questions any aspect of his leadership. And I think that sucks. I think that's terrible. So the America Party and Elon Musk is kind of a reaction to that. and we'll see where it goes. I should read about it more, find out a little bit more detail about it before I comment further. You have to take control when you go to see a doctor. Maybe you should have said you want him to interpret the x-rays. Yeah, you do have to take control. You have to be your own advocate, for sure. So if I have to do that again, that's what I'll do. Elon is running a data collection site, free speech or not. We need to remember he's a massive AI guy. He's making his money. Well, so AI, man, that's a big subject too, because it's going to change everything. Like you look at Fiverr and all the people on there that do voiceover work or do animation work or do video work, they're all out of business. Data analysis, work that would take weeks to do by human hands can be done instantaneously by artificial intelligence. There's vast implications for the legal field. It basically is the biggest white collar disruption that we're going to face, and we're just at the beginning of it now. And I think it's like a locomotive moving downhill. There's no stopping it. And so Elon is just one player at the table trying to win the race. I think it's very dangerous for humans to rely on it to be the arbiter of what is reality and what is truth. I don't think you should do it. That's why I have a policy on my channel that none of my content is AI. It's going to be me, and it's going to be real. And I know there's programs that you can feed your voice to, and you can write scripts, and you can make short videos, and you can do all this cool stuff with AI. That's still you. It's still you producing it. I'm not going to use any of it. This content's going to be human, and for as long as it is viable to be, it's not going to be monetized. And I can think of 100 reasons why. There's a lot of people who are really frustrated with me that I just won't do it because the channel's not getting reach. It's algorithmically not being favored, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that YouTube is not making money off it, because monetization is not about making money from YouTube. It's about getting the reach and getting YouTube working to promote you to the people that want to find you. And if you're not monetized, you're being hidden from them. But I digress. I want to just keep things the way that they are. The other thing too is that when people do donate, a lot of the messages that I've received are keep it ad free. So there's a lot of support for it from the community. So that's another incentive to keep it this way. But like, I didn't start out looking for financial incentives to stay this way. I want to stay this way. I don't want sponsors. I don't want to do product placement. I don't want to sell. Here's another thing I thought of the other day. Well, actually, I didn't think of. I was doing some research because I was exploring. I was in a live stream, and I'd never clicked the super chat button before, so I clicked it just to see what it brought up. And there was options to donate a certain amount of subscriptions. So I'm like, okay, so I pick one randomly just to see what it would cost. I think it was 50 subs, and it was like $250. And I'm like, okay, so I advance it again to basically your checkout. And I saw that there's a charge for sales tax there. And I'm like, I didn't know that. I didn't know super chats are GST or HST applicable. I didn't know that. And I'm like, I want to know why. So I started doing some research and digging as to why. And so if you're a content creator and you paywall anything, or you create a branch of your content that has special privileges, so that if you donate or you sign up, you get special access to a chat room, you get special access to a Discord server, you get special access to video content, you are now offering a service, and you are subject to paying the federal government sales taxes. But if you're doing it the way that we're doing it, which is no advertising and no special access to everything is just outgoing, freely available, you gain no incentive by financially supporting it, you don't have to pay sales tax when you donate. That's pretty cool, right? But as a business, if I start incurring expenses, I can still get my GST back and claim a write-off as a business. So you don't have to pay, and I still gain the benefit of a write-off, which means the federal government isn't in our pockets as much. That's kind of cool, isn't it? Right? So, yeah, that's another reason. But Elon did not call Trump a pedo. He said he was on the flight logs, which is similar, but not the same. Elon has received a fortune in subsidies and grants, so he'd be stupid not to. If the government's handing out money, and you're in his position, you take it. Or at least most people would. Not everybody's as stupid as I am. I like no ads, says Huntsman. I do too. I like not being interrupted by ads. And I'm not judging or casting shade on anybody that goes that route, and maybe one day we'll have to as well. But on AI Frank, I could turn his hair back on. Well, luckily it still grows. So I don't know, maybe I'll grow it back. I haven't cut it again, that's for sure. And I do kind of miss it. Ever thought of partnering with some other channels like yourself? For sure I have, Phil. Part of what I'm doing here is I want to figure out how bad streaming is, because before I go out and I spend money getting a software license for StreamYard, I want to make sure that I can do a quality stream without it chugging, because one of the streams I did recently, everybody was complaining about how chuggy it was and how many drop frames there was. I don't know why that was. Whether it was somebody was using internet in the house, maybe I need to buy a router so that I can prioritize the streaming computer to make sure that it's nice and steady. Like, I'm on Starlink. I'm in the middle of nowhere, so I need to know that it's technically feasible before I go and spend a bunch of money buying software. But my first interview is going to Clyde Do Something, because he's been so helpful. He's one of the nicest people I've met in the space. He's always trying to help people out. I don't know why he gets so much hate. He's such a good guy. So he gets the first interview, and then after that, there's all kinds of people. There's a bunch of small accounts I want to bring on, because they're not getting algorithmic reach either, and I want to help them out. So that's coming next. And I want to, like, back there behind the screen, I want to build an actual setup. So, like, when we do these live streams, I want to be sitting in a chair in a space, at my leisure, doing this differently and much more comfortably. Like, I have, and this isn't by any stretch a professional live stream, but like, I have my YouTube channel open on a page with the video paused, and I'm reading your chat from that page. That's how technically unsophisticated I actually am right now. But like, I could be making scenes and switching between the scenes instead of manually clicking camera angles on and off and windows on and off. Like, there's so much better that I can do, and I need to do it. So just getting an idea of, so everything's been good today? Because I don't know if I missed the place where you guys answered me, but like, we're not dropping frames, the video's steady, the sound is steady, everything's good. Carnivore, creatine, and nicotine. I've gone from walking less than a block to 3 miles a day with my Malamute. Knees back were destroyed, not perfect, but mobile again. Right on, GDR. Yeah, I was walking 6 miles a day for a while there. But then I got injured, then I got sick, and it kind of derailed all that. Carnivore is the way to go. Carnivore and fasting. And carnivore is what I'm getting back onto now. I eat pretty good. I just eat too much. I need to get back to strict carnivore. I don't have time to mess around anymore. I got things I need to take care of. Elon, Carney, WEF, yeah. There's a great flow chart of all their linkages that Moose on the Loose has done. It's good work. Maybe we will like the AIU better. Well, the good thing is, Sheriff of YouTube, I'm not here to be liked. I don't do this to be liked. I do this to try and figure out how to do something productive in a different way. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. If I was here to be liked, I wouldn't do some of the things that I do. The term content creator is such a buzzword now. Most of these hacks are Hassan Pilker clones, creators of nothing. It's so true, man. Reaction videos. The whole world of reaction videos. That people are making a lot of bank on reaction videos. I don't get it. And then there's like reaction videos to people reacting to videos. I've seen it 4 layers deep, where you have the piece of original content, and then there's someone reacting to it, and then someone reacting to that reaction, and then another person reacting to the reaction of the reaction of the reaction video. What? No one's actually creating anything. They're not doing anything original. Gina says, Frank looks like he could be on GQ with lovely haircut. It doesn't hide his face. You might need to get your prescription to your glasses updated, Gina, but I appreciate it. Opinions are as mixed as my opinion itself. It's kind of funny because the community is so divided about my hair, and my own brain is divided about my hair. I like it long and I like it short. I don't know, man. I don't know. Better to have the email by donation, I guess. It's cool, yep. I guess there's other ways I could do it, but I haven't yet. No, Frank, Lion's Mane, less mystery and majesty. My stream is a lot better than last time. That's good. English with Trevor says, I'm just curious, if you are not monetized or making money off your channel, how do you afford to have a family? Well, that's a good question. First off, when we sold our house in Ontario and we moved out here, we had a bit of a surplus that came out of that. And so I lived off that for a while. I'm very frugal. And when I decided that I was going to come back and do this, I was willing to take a loan to do it. And I, in fact, did. I took a $20,000 loan to maintain myself for a while I was doing this to see where it would go. I have had donations. I don't know if I can rely on them, but they are there. And I'm willing to go into debt trying this. Let's put it that way. And our biggest expense in this house is food. And we don't eat out at restaurants. We buy groceries. This December, I have a full cow coming from a local grass-fed producer. Super cheap way to eat. I mean, I think one of the videos I originally did when I came back. No, it was actually a tweet that I did. I broke down my cost to feed my family, and it was like $1,500 a month for a family of 4. It was pretty good, and we eat really good. So there's a high degree of frugality, and there's an ability to take on debt if I have to try and do this. And if it doesn't work, then I guess I'll try to get a job at Co-op, or I'll get my, I think it's called a Class 1 license here, where you can drive heavy equipment, and I'll either end up at a gravel pit, or I'll be doing farm work or something, or I'll try and, because I do have some land, so I can try and develop that and get my farm going again. The biggest difference is, though, is that I am so much further away from people than I used to be. So my transport cost is going to be so much higher. And per square kilometer, there's a hell of a lot less people here than there was in Eastern Ontario. So the market is that much smaller. So any potential solution to future financial difficulty is going to involve a diverse array of activity to make things work. But that being said, we live fairly cheap. We're fairly efficient. My wife isn't after new cars. We're a single car family. I have a 2013 vehicle, which I maintain, do a lot of the work on myself. Some I don't, but most I do. And we're not after big, expensive things. What I would like is a purposeful, driven job. What I want out of this channel is purposeful. And if I can make this work and I can grow this out, and I can build towards something that meaningfully impacts either my region or my province or the country, I can give people a place to gather together and share thoughts and opinions that aren't what would you call it, politically motivated. So like I don't want to ever, when I ran for the PPC, that's the closest I ever came to being fully political. When I campaigned and I went to the debates, I never talked about Bernier. I talked about the party and the need for more people's representation and a people's party, a genuine people's party. And I'm really proud of that. But I argued about things that I really didn't think were things that I cared about that much. Like the privatization of Canada Post is really down my list of priorities. My issues with supply management come down to the fact that small people can't get on the market. When I was doing farmers markets and managing farmers markets, I constantly got asked by people who wanted to do chickens, or they wanted to get a small flock of dairy. They're like, how do I get on the market? And I'm like, you can't. I had to break the bad news to them. If you're a small producer, you're just locked out. Supply management keeps you out. I think that sucks. I think there should be more exemptions for small producers to be able to just market their stuff locally. But it wasn't that big a deal for me. Like, I don't want to do politics anymore. Like I don't want to be on a team. I just want to provide honest commentary. I want to develop my own thoughts, and hopefully I can do something productive with those things as time goes by. Oh man, the chat just jumped forward again. Clyde blocked me over a simple comment. Sorry, but he can get wrecked. Clyde's his own man. He does his own things. I'm just saying he's been good. He's been good to me. Great job, Frank. No question. You're one of the truth sayers. And I block people too, by the way. It happens. What I do though is periodically I unblock everybody I've blocked every so often, at least once a year. And then they might end up blocked again. Oftentimes they do, because there's some people that are just wasting your time, and they'll waste all of your time, and they earn it. But even still, they'll get unblocked eventually. Ezra will give you more money, but he is a harsh master. I don't think Ezra will ever hire me. He's never acknowledged my existence. I probably said something in the past that he doesn't like, maybe. Or maybe I'm just not that important. But we have mutual friends, so I think he knows I'm out here, but for whatever reason, he's just never communicated. Frank, I just dropped on to let you know you are right about everything. People like you are the only hope to get truth out to save Canada. I don't know if I'm right about everything, Dirk, but I try to figure out what's right. One or two glitches. That's not too bad. But I mean, is there enough glitching that you wouldn't want to watch? Stream is better quality than most I see. That's good news, Vance. You had one freeze about an hour ago. Otherwise, great stream. Do other streams freeze as they go? Like, is it typical? Do you see freezing in other streams? Carnivore is amazing. Saved my husband's life and mine after I had a stroke. Yep, it is such an underrated way to go. And easy, too. It's boring. That's the number one complaint people have. But, like, the way you get fat is by comfort eating. Like, for somebody who has a weight problem, eating should become utilitarian. And you should train yourself that eating is utilitarian and not an enjoyment. It's not a place that you derive pleasure from. It's just something you do to sustain yourself. And get practiced up doing that. And then you can start to add the good stuff back in when you have a little bit more control. I don't watch streams to find a perfect person whose opinion I completely agree with. Good. Asmongold flipping had as much influence as Elon in election. Isn't Asmon's story arc fascinating? Dude was a Warcraft player and did some really cool things, like when they kited that dragon all the way to Stormwind and they broke the beta server. Like, that's some classic cool stuff. Like, I used to play that back in the day. Did some cool stuff. And now, I don't even think the guy plays video games anymore. He literally just pontificates on the day's ongoing events. And has a heck of a lot of influence doing it. And Jackass Whiskey and Pinto Bean says, I do like reaction videos of movies and bands, though it's gotten boring. I watch reaction videos too. Like, there's a drum guy, a drum teacher. I can't remember his name. He pops up every now and again, and he'll he did a review specifically of Alex Rudinger. And it's hilarious. It's hilarious. Every now and again when it pops up on my feed, I click on it. Bring back the mullet. My wife will not allow me to have a mullet. I would love to do it. One time when she was in bed and I was working late. It was probably right around this time of year because we had daylight until almost 10 o'clock. So I was out working hard. So I come in for the night. She's already asleep. I'm covered in sweat. And I don't recall why. But I decided I either screwed up while I was shaving. Something happened, and I decided I had to shave my beard off and start over again. I don't remember why. But so what I did was I shaved the sides off, and I left a line here and a line here that was disattached from here, and then I shaved into the Charlie Chaplin, or that other identifiable person, stash. So I had this really ugly looking thing going on. And then I went to bed. So the next morning, she rolls over, big smile on her face like she has every single morning, and she looks at my face, and I just see her reaction, this horrified reaction. She's like, you can't be serious. And I'm like, no, I'm not serious. I just wanted to see your face. But a mullet would never go. Frank Invite, Canadian Citizen Journal, Tobias, that would be epic. Once I get set up, man, I'm going to talk to everybody. Don't take on debt. Jackass Whiskey and Pinto Beans, don't take on debt is solid advice. But if I hadn't have taken on debt at various points in my life, I wouldn't be where I am today. Borrowing my ass off, paid for my farm, and kept me alive. Borrowing my ass off is that's what I had to do when I ran in the federal election. I used to joke back then that I'm one of the only people who ran in politics who didn't make money off it because I lost. I shut my business down because I was so afraid that Elections Canada, because I was running for like this fringe party, that they're going to say, you funneled money from somewhere, you did something illegal. So I was super cautious. I shut down all of my revenue streams in the lead up to that election. And yeah, I left myself in a really bad position coming into that winter. But, I recovered. Debt can be a good thing if you use it for business purposes and you actually have a plan for how to, what you're going to do with it. You shouldn't take on debt for vacations. You shouldn't take on debt to buy a new car that you don't need. If you're going to take on debt and buy a car, buy a used car. Buy a good, well-rounded used car that's cheap. I think if you want to start a business and it has a reasonable prospect of success, that's a good time to take a loan. Don't take on debt is great advice in general, but debt can be a really useful tool too, especially if interest rates are cheap. And we just went through 12 years of the cheapest interest rates any of us are ever going to see in our lives. And I made use of that on a number of occasions to, in the end, make my life better. And things could have worked out differently, that's for sure. But yeah, his wife is irreplaceable. Yep. She is the best human being I will ever meet and know, probably. She's a far better human than I am. I try to live up to her example every single day and fail most days. She's awesome. Where are you, Frank? Northern Saskatchewan. Frank Vaughn, your sound could be louder. I've had to turn my volume up a lot more than on your normal uploads. Okay. That's solid. Thank you for that feedback. Rather eat bacon and eggs every day than any cinnamon bun? I'm with you there. Hello, just joined. Binary Singularity. Welcome. I find your streams are very good. I watch a great deal. This is my first live. I don't do a lot of lives. I kind of want to do more of them. Getting a feel for what they're supposed to be is another thing, because I like to think about what I say before I say it, especially when I make a normal video. And the thing about live streaming is I've been watching other streamers and learning for years. Like the guys that stream for 7 or 8 hours a day, they're eating their meals on stream. They're getting up and they're walking away from 15 minutes, and literally there's a live stream of their chair and there's 14,000 people there watching. And I'm trying to understand. It's like, what is this? What is this phenomenon? Like, how does this actually work? What people are looking for out of a live stream, I think, is literally just hanging out more than anything. But it's still new to me. So I'm going to develop this over the coming months. Jonathan Gould, he still plays games. Asmund does, yeah. I just don't see much of that because I'm always getting fed. The algorithm feeds me his shorts, and it's always political commentary. I never see him play games. What mic do you use? It is a step down from that. You're recommending the Shure SMB, whatever it is that everybody uses. This is the $300 version. I bought this back in Ontario. It works pretty good. Maybe I just need to adjust the levels. Who knows? Maybe I'll get another one day. But I'm a big stickler for just using something if it works and not spending money. Divorce grounds, Jonathan Gould says, yeah, a mullet would be. There are some red lines with my wife that I'm pretty sure if I cross them, divorce might not be it, but my life would get a lot harder. Rocking a mullet would probably be one of those. Definitely. Thank you, Frank. I'm a New Brunswicker and run an online English school, tough but rewarding. I'm in Chile, spent 20 years in Asia. I think moving to Saskatchewan is a great idea. It's interesting. When I thought about where am I going to raise my kids, what can I do best for them, and you examine all the options, I think anybody that's got a family is in the same boat. You're trying to answer the same question. Ontario wasn't it. For one thing, in Ontario, I had a 1,300 square foot house. It was built in 1895. It was airy. It had more problems than I could count. It was buggy. I mean, if people knew, I look back on it now and I'm like, I lived there. When people used to come over for dinner, I'd have to pause, like in the summertime, I'd have to pause every half hour or so and vacuum up the flies and the ladybugs so that we could just eat in peace. It's rather embarrassing, very humbling. And I couldn't, with 2 kids, our bedroom was in our sunroom. My office was in our living room. And the kids had the bedrooms. And there was nowhere to move. And you couldn't side grade in Ontario. I couldn't afford to stay. So I knew I had to leave. And that's just the physical reality of where I lived. There was also the political situation. Because in 2021, I was actually early 2022 when we made up our mind that we were going sight unseen, we were getting out of there. That was when Doug Ford was saying he was going to go door to door to get needles and arms. And I remember watching that press conference, and I had some deep thoughts about what consequences would arise from someone showing up in my driveway to force me to take a medical product. There's a saying that it's not about what you're willing to live with, it's about what you're not willing to live with. And I kind of know where my limit is. And that's not hyperbole. There's some things I will not live with because I'm out of here anyway, right? I'm not going to live forever. So There's certain things that are just dividing lines. And I thought, I kind of want to be around to be with my family and raise a good family and do all these things. And so where am I going to do that? It has to be somewhere else, because it's not going to be Ontario. I can't trust this government. I can't side grade. I don't have a big enough house. And so I cast my eyes around the country, as I had been for years. It wasn't like it was a quick decision. I played with the idea. I'd looked out east. I'd looked all over. And I thought, well, you can go to the United States, but Biden's in office. You could have a more sensible government come along, but you could end up in the same boat. They've got this mass immigration problem. They have all these problems. I'm a Canadian. I don't have my passports. There's all this stuff. Looking around in Canada, it's like, well, there's Saskatchewan and there's Alberta, basically. And I felt that Saskatchewan had the best politics. Saskatchewan had the more favorable homeschooling situation, because we wanted to do that. It had the best demographics regionally. Has a crime problem, but the crime problem is, once you understand where the crime's coming from, you can realize that there's a lot of places in Saskatchewan that are damn near utopian, but in the general crime statistics, you wouldn't know it. Basically, it's like anywhere else. You got to stay away from the cities. And the housing was cheap. The value proposition was there. It's like, I can get a bigger house here for much cheaper than I could live in a small house or even a vacant lot in Ontario. So, yeah, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you do it? So I think this is one of the best places you can be in the country, here or Alberta, this part of the country. And I really do think independence and autonomy and sovereignty is the way to go. Because if we stick with Ottawa and we stick with the politics of the rest of the country, we're just going to go down with the rest of the country. And I say that knowing that many of my viewers are going to be from Ontario or BC or somewhere else. This is one of those examples where I got to say something that might be uncomfortable for people to hear, but I got to say it anyway. I really think we're at that point where you got to vote with your feet. I had never been to Saskatchewan before I crossed the border with all of my stuff. It was the first time I'd set foot in this place. I never came here to see the house I was moving to. The real estate agent shot a video, and I didn't even get a home inspection, because I thought for sure there's no way the house I'm moving to can be worse than the house I'm coming from. If all the problems are the same, at least I'm in a better place. It turned out the house is in much better shape than the one I moved from, and it was great. And the crazy thing is I've been here for 3 years, and that value proposition still exists today. That if you're struggling in Ontario and you feel like you have no future and you want to get to a better jurisdiction, come here. If you have the right mindset. There's no one in this chat, or there's no one watching this live stream that doesn't have the right mindset that you can come. And don't come looking to change anything. Come looking to keep it the way it is. Make some improvements around the edges. We could do with less crime, and we could do with, more autonomy and all this stuff. But leave the baggage at the door. It was a really good leap of faith. It was nerve-wracking. It was very stressful. But in the end, it was one of the best things I've ever done in my life, was moving here. No regrets at all. Grant W., you can borrow at 5.45% and yield at 14.4% as one example. I'd love to hear more about that. Because, borrowing cheap and being able to get higher yield is one of those things that you can do. I am by nature an investor, Jackass and Pinto Beans, which, by the way, one of the most memorable names that I've ever seen on YouTube, Jackass Whiskey and Pinto Beans. What does that do in your stomach? Sounds like it's just going to produce a lot of gas, but depending on what your plan are, I could foot part of the bill, but would want a percentage of profits, say 10%. I see where you're getting at. Yep, I appreciate that. There's it's good to know there's other sources of capital out there if I needed. I'd like to borrow as little as possible. My house is 900 square feet, but I own it, no mortgage. Yes. And we, for our part, that little 1,300 square foot house that had more problems than I could count on my hand, we would roll our change. We wouldn't go out on weekends. We wouldn't eat out at restaurants. We'd save all our money so that we could go down to the bank and give it to them to pay off our mortgage quick. And we paid our mortgage off in November of 21, and we sold the place in February of 22 and moved here. But every single skimping that we did, every single roll of nickels, ended up paying off in the end. Government propaganda. Hey, brother. He's a friend of mine. Hey, bro, you got out of Ontario at the perfect time, real estate price-wise. Yeah, man. Yeah. I wish I could have dragged you with me, man. There's a bunch of people back there. I wish I could have. Everybody had their own issues. Everybody has their own decisions to make. But now it's like, the value proposition's still there. If you can get out of your house, not just you, but I mean the royal you, if you can get out of your house with a couple $100,000 in equity, you can still do well out here. You can still buy something decent, and you can find work to keep it. Property taxes are lower. The value proposition is still there. It's shrunk a little bit, but it's still there. Frank Vaughn, I read the writing on the wall in 1981, which prompted me to transplant to Alberta. Got a teaching job within 2 weeks. Right on. Yeah. Yeah, I had nightmares about COVID police showing up at our door and pummeling me down and jabbing me, including my offspring. It was a disgusting agenda. It's just a dark thought process that I never thought I would have to go through in my life. And I know exactly where I stand on it. And I knew I had to get out, because if I was going to go through that again anywhere, I wanted to go through that in a better place where I can see the lines of approach a lot further. Debt is slavery. It is if you get in the debt trap. It sure is. Debt's a tool. It's a tool in the toolbox. But, you don't want to be getting in debt for luxuries and for things like, I see people getting in debt for trips to Disneyland, or getting $70,000, $80,000 in debt for a pickup truck when they could have got a perfectly functional pickup truck for $5,000 or $10,000 that was reliable somewhere else. It's, you got to use it strategically. Frank, I might have to move to Alberta, Saskatchewan. I'm struggling in Victoria. People are all insane lefties. What town in Saskatchewan are you in? I'm not going to tell you that, because one of the reasons I had to move out here, one of the many reasons, because again, life is complicated. There isn't one size catches all for everything. I needed a bigger house and all the things I already said. But when I was making videos before, people started showing up at my house because my address was public. It was online because I had the farm. I had a public-facing company. So people who had seen my video work started showing up at my door and banging on the door just to say hello because they'd watched one of my videos. And I'm like, that's a bit of a red flag warning that, and the only one that I don't know about was I found footsteps outside of my house. Somebody had been there at night walking around my house. And I had my wife inside. She was either pregnant or shortly to be. My son was asleep, and I had somebody casing my place at night. And I'm like, if I'm going to do this, if I'm going to be politically involved, or I'm going to do social commentary, and I'm going to build up something, then I need to shed this public address. And there was no way for me to get it offline. Similar to that info card that I'm asking people to go and try and get changed. There was no way to cleanse Google of my address. So I knew I had to, if I was going to continue, I had to move. And so what I did at the time was I took all my content down. I stopped interacting. I stopped engaging so that the public spotlight would fade away and people would stop showing up, because if you stop being interesting, people stop trying to find you. And that's what I did. And then I moved out here, and then I intended to get to work on this right away. But what ended up happening was I spent a lot more time with my kids. I took some time off. I hadn't had a weekend to myself for like 15, 16 years. Every weekend in the summertime was work, and then all through the week as well. So I had these 2 young toddlers, and I'm like, I'm going to spend some time with them. We're going to live real cheap, and we're going to burn through some of the money we made on the real estate sale, and we're going to have experiences. You know, we're going to play outside, and we're going to read books together. And I mean, I've read thousands of books to the kids. My wife has read thousands and thousands more, tens of thousands of books. There's been so many good memories that were created, and I didn't jump in right away, and I wanted to know my motivations for getting back into this. And so I spent some time kind of getting to know myself, processing my past. I put together, through memory and through reading Dad's old journals and looking at pictures and doing research, I pieced together a timeline going back to my earliest childhood memories so that I could tell you where I was, what I was doing within a couple months, because my childhood was a bit fraught. It had issues. And I wanted to know how I got where I got in life at whatever I was, 42, 43 years old, all the things that led me to that point. And so I did that mental exercise, and I figured all that sort of stuff out, trying to figure out what my motives were. And because, you know, you have this voice in your head, these criticisms that you get over time, that the only reason you'd be on social media is if you're an unrepentant narcissist, or people call me an egomaniac, or the PPC idiots who are just like, oh man, you're an egomaniac and you just wanted to control the party and that's why you tried to take it over, and making up stuff that never happened. Never happened. Nothing even close to it. People say all kinds of things that aren't true. But I try to find value in just about everything that anybody says to me. So if there's even a kernel of validity to a criticism, if somebody threw at me at one time, 2021 or 2020, and they said, "Yo, you're just a narcissist," it's like, well, am I? Am I a narcissist? How would I prove to myself that I'm not a narcissist? What would I do? What would a narcissist not be able to do? And one of the things a narcissist can't do is walk away from fame. And I've done that twice now. Not much fame, but a little bit of a spotlight and a little bit of a following. The first time was way bigger. My first encounter with social media, 2015, 2016, in the first Trump run. We're talking, I had Facebook groups with hundreds of thousands of people. It was done mainly anonymously, but I had it, and I dropped it. When the mission was accomplished, I left. Narcissists don't do that. They never quit. They never walk away from that. So anyway, spent some time with the family, examined myself, tried to figure out my own psychology, and basically came to the conclusion that I'm an introvert by nature. I much prefer quiet country days and silence and books. That's who I am. And I don't really want politics. And I don't really want to be famous. Because if I had it my way, I'd live a quiet life. I'd grow some things. I'd mind my own business. And I came to the conclusion that because of that, I should probably try to actually do something and get back into this line of work. So that's why I'm here. It's because I don't necessarily want it. It's because I'm driven to try and do something good and build something good. Is exactly the reason I'm here now. The problem with Saskatchewan is that it's still in Canada. True. That is definitely a problem with Saskatchewan. Paid my house in 4 years, total interest paid on mortgage, $11,000. I actually don't remember how much interest I paid. It was probably more than that. It took me 12 years, but I was paying off a mortgage. My house that I bought in 2011 was $128,000 in Eastern Ontario, 10 minutes north of the 401. $128,000. Took me 12 years to pay off a $100,000 note. But we were market gardening, so we were never going to make enormous amounts of money. The thing I loved about market gardening was long days. It certainly didn't pay by the hour. I think I made less than minimum wage the entire time I did it. Had to do a lot of different things to make ends meet. But I loved being outside. I loved the sweat. I loved the long days. I loved the sense of reward. I loved feeding people. The idea that my food was going on 500, 600, 1,000 plates in a weekend really made me feel good. So I didn't really care about the money. Like I've never been caught up on money. I've never really wanted to chase it. It's like I need enough of it to pay my bills, but like I don't want anything. I don't want a new car. I don't want a trip. There's not a lot of stuff I want. I want experiences and I want time. You know, that's kind of my currency. I want those things, but unfortunately, you still need money. And even if I didn't need money, I think I'd still be right here where I am right now. If I was independently wealthy, I think I would still be trying to pursue some kind of influence on the culture. I glanced at a subreddit for Calgary and just saw liberal posts. If you're on Reddit, that's your first mistake. That is a liberal stronghold these days. I sold my house in Winnipeg for $160K and settled rurally in a $50,000 home. Best move I ever made. For sure, Gary. Moving with your feet. Yep. I can't believe the deals are still there. There's 17 million people in Ontario. Why aren't they all selling their homes and moving out here and buying up all the real estate? I don't get it. People think Saskatchewan is this horrible place. It's actually not. It's wonderful. But there's a lot of people in Saskatchewan that hate hearing me say that. But if we could get the like minds to move out here, man, we could probably do some really cool stuff. There's only 1.2 million people here. You know, a relative handful of people could probably take over the provincial NDP. A couple hundred people could elect a completely new board and take over a provincial party. To say nothing of what you might be able to do with the other parties. But that's a down the road conversation. We can do some cool things here to keep it the way that it is. You have 3 a.m. fans? Just wanted to have some milk and cookies and a good chat in Ontario? Yeah. No, that was a real wake-up call. It's like, you know what? If I blow up and I get any more famous, someone with bad intentions is going to find me. So I need to get more isolated. I need to get out of the reach of public transit if I'm going to do this again. Should have used a separate identity to begin with, Frank. Good OPSEC pays off. I like doing things in my name, though. I don't want to be anonymous. I don't want to be easy to find, but I don't want to be anonymous. I'm Frank Vaughn. That's all I am. So I want to do things in my name. Without debt, our society would collapse economically 100%. And this chat just skipped forward again. Man, I wish I could figure out how to solve that. There we are. Best time spent is with your kids when they are young. They are young for a short period of time. Yeah, Charlotte, for sure. And that's kind of what my thinking was. It's like, you know, I got this opportunity. I got a bit of time. I can build strong bonds with my kids. I can build those memories. You know, what's money? Like, what's money compared to time? And so that's the trade I made. And, you know, I don't regret it, but I mean, I'm not retired. I'm far from it. I have to figure out how to make things work. And I have all these stupid convoluted rules for how things work. Oh man, I don't like doing things that I don't feel morally comfortable with, which is why farming was awesome. Growing things was amazing because it's so rewarding, right? And like, I like doing this. I like having conversations. I like making videos. I like telling the truth. But I don't want to enable Google while I'm doing it. I don't want them making money off me. I don't want people who are donating money paying 30% of their money to Google. I don't want them having to pay GST because I've decided to turn it into a service. Like, I have all of these stupid, convoluted rules, and I'll break them if I have to in order to feed my family. But when one develops a love for reading, everything else can be learned. I still love reading. I need to do more of it, not less. PPC sounds too close to CCP. Yeah, like People's Party. I didn't have any input on that. The reason the color purple is the party is down to me. I was the first one to wear purple. I was the first one to suggest it. But I did not like People's Party. Too many commie fascist links to that name. But luckily, it's not a party. It's a not-for-profit corporation that Max controls until the day he decides to shut it down. A narcissist doesn't ask themselves if they are a narcissist. You know, if I had have possessed that as accepted wisdom, I could have probably saved myself a lot of time. Narcissists don't admit they are wrong or say they are sorry. Very true. I've done both of those things many times. My phone, from phone to books, is much better. My phone is stupid. I've got it beside me. It makes phone calls, and I leave it in my office. I don't take it into the house. I mean, some evenings I do, I guess. But I try to be off it as much as possible. If I'm going to do, when I sit down and actually respond to comments, I'm doing it at my desktop. I don't do it on my phone. If I catch myself doing it on my phone, I slap myself on the hand and stop. You're doing God's work. Thank you. Hopefully I am, Dar. Hopefully I am. Oh, for crying out loud. Chat just jumped again. Storms of life, you hit the hammer on the head. I have woken up spiritually and awake to see the truth of what's going on. God will win. SK winters are brutal. Okay, you know what? I got a counterpoint to that because the winter was the thing I worried about the most. The winters here are so clean. When they set in, they're in. There's no mud. There's no freeze-thaw cycle. I mean, there was a little bit, not this winter, but last winter. But there's no, like, an inch of rain one day and then snow the next day, and then it thaws out and everything's mud, and then it's frozen again, and, like, this whole thing. Winter comes in, and it's clean. There's none of that nonsense. It's like winter is real here. Yeah, it's cold, but you can prepare for the cold. It's not always minus 40, you know, like that's, you get your spells, you get like a couple weeks total that's really cold like that overnight. Most days, I mean, it's usually, I think the coldest days are generally around minus 25, minus 28. I guess I just gotten used to it already. I worried about it a lot before I moved here, and it actually became one of the best things about Saskatchewan is the winter. I love the winters. They're long, that's for sure, but they're so clean. They're so tidy. And white Christmases, almost always. I love it. I love the winter. I'd miss my off-grid treed paradise moving back to Alberta and Saskatchewan. I don't know where you are, but if you've got that, man, you're sailing. I mean, the mountains of BC are nice too. The interior, it's just land is so expensive in BC, and you still, even though the interior does its own thing, technically they're still governed by Victoria. So Saskatchewan, land of big blue sky. It's a beautiful province. It really is. And it's not all flat. I mean, the north is treed and hilly, and many places reminds me of Ontario. Just the trees are, the forests aren't, if you're used to Ontario forests, I think that's probably the only thing I really miss about Ontario, other than some people, is the forests. There's a lot of trees missing here that I long for. But now that I've been here, I think if I was living back in Ontario, I would miss the forests here as well. You know, it's almost like having two lovers, you know. You love them both for different reasons. It's a bad analogy. Frank, I agree with the comment. You are doing the work of the Lord. The truth will set people free. We live in communism of late. You know something? Just about every time I sit down to start filming, I pray that I do good work. I actually sit here in front of this camera just like I am now before I hit record. Before I even start the day's work, I pray that I'm going to do good work. And every single day, I pray before bed. And there's a lot of... I don't have a lot of certainty about my faith, and I don't feel like I need it. I feel like there's a relationship there that's very real to me. It's framed through Christianity, but even, if I wanted to, I could parse the details of Christian dogma and tell you the ones that I reject and why I reject them, but I don't think it's important. It's one of the reasons why I pitched a while back at the very beginning. I was just like, hey, would you guys like a Sunday show where, I talk about biblical stuff? And the vast majority of the feedback was like, yeah, they'd like to see it. And then the more I thought about it, the more I'm just like, you know what? It's not my job to tell people what to think and believe spiritually. I don't even half the time know. I don't have a lot of determination myself. What I do know is that for me personally, it's been working in my life for as long as I can remember. And I've too many personal experiences, there's too much stuff there. There's something bigger going on. And I'm just a human living a human life, and it's not up to me to explain what it all means. If you wanted enlightenment, if you wanted spiritual enlightenment, you wanted all the answers. You wanted to know how creation can possibly be. You wanted all these answers. You wouldn't be a human being. A human being is experiencing this life in a human way, which is limitation and limited. If you knew from a human perspective that your soul lived on and on forever and you knew exactly what it looked like, that you remembered the time before you became what you are and you knew where you were going when you were done, the life that you're living now would not have the meaning that it does. So picture it this way. You have an eternal soul, and you die, and you go to some place, and you review your life. And you made bad choices, and you made good choices. The perspective, while you lived, of not knowing where your soul was going to go, so you only really knew the physical reality that you were living in, that you only had this one life. And the hurts that you caused and the hurts that you felt were so real because the only thing that was real to you was the life that you were living. When you go back to that other place and you discover that you have an eternal soul, all of those experiences that you had retain their value and meaning for that soul because you felt them and you lived them. The human experience is an experience of limitation. And so when I was a teenager and everybody, it was cool to search after enlightenment and get all this knowledge, I gave up on that pretty early in my 20s because I'm like, I just concluded I am not meant to know all that stuff. I'm not meant to have all the answers. I'm meant to be a human being living a human life. So I'm just going to live my life, and I'm going to try to have the guideposts. I'm going to try and live it in a good way, and I'm going to try and live it in alignment, hopefully with a greater purpose. But I don't need to define it. I don't need to have all the answers. I don't even think I'm supposed to. I'm a human. I love your channel. Have you ever had an episode with Jasmine Lane? Jasmine is somebody I haven't met, haven't crossed paths with yet. I'm sure with time it'll happen. I have a talent for making money, says Jackass and Pinto Beans. Making money as a skill is not fulfilling. I became bored with making money. I can anecdotally relate to that in that I thought paying my mortgage off was going to be the end-all, be-all of financial existence. And what I found out when I did it was, first off, you don't get a note of thanks from the bank for all the interest payments you made. What you get is an irritated teller who's probably living in a rental or buried underneath their own mortgage who hates you because you just went in and paid the last $500 off. And you get a little sheet of paper that's like not even the size of a business card that says you paid it. You don't get a letter. You don't get nothing. But you're mortgage free. And then you're just like, hang on a sec. I still got to pay my property taxes. The hydro bill's still coming in. Food still costs a fortune. And I'm not retired. So I just single-mindedly spent the last 12 years saving every single penny to pay this thing off. And you're telling me I'm not done? That life is still going to cost me. Like it was funny because I was almost disappointed with how anticlimactic it was. And I would advise anybody that's underneath a mortgage to pay that thing off as quick as you can. Don't remortgage. Don't get into the remortgaging trap, buying cars and taking trips and doing all the stuff. Get it paid off. But the fact of the matter is, you have to live somewhere. And your house, it's kind of illiquid. Because if you sell it, you still got to go live somewhere. So it's good to have, but it's not like you pay your mortgage off and you live happily ever after. Life keeps going on. You should still do it. I don't want to dissuade anybody from not being motivated to pay your mortgage off. It's just it's not the end of the road. The road stretches on from there. I love winter. Never want to leave this land. I love winter too, Sandy. I love winter. I don't understand people who hate it. I thoroughly enjoy. One of the things that makes me feel rich, actually, is the fact that I have a fireplace, which is ridiculous. I have a wood stove. And because of my life experience, a wood stove is actually what makes me feel rich. But sitting there in my Facebook Marketplace purchased easy chair with its duct tape, which is literally, I've got 2 easy chairs in the living room that are duct taped. So comfortable, though. Looking out my windows at a blizzard. Warm in front of the fire, drinking a coffee. That's peak life. That's just peak. I don't think it gets better than that. I love winter. Apparently someone named Maria left. Oh, there we are. Thanks, Frank, for a great listen. I have to jet. Have a good day, evening, all. Right on, Maria. Thanks for being here. Thanks for spending some time with me. And us. Enjoy the rest of your day, Maria. Faith is the key, as is forgiveness. Faith indeed. I still have a bit of an issue with forgiveness. I have to work on that. There's some people that, I don't know. The forgiveness thing. Still working on it. I'm spiritual, so I already knew you were a spiritual man, and the truths you bring out show your fruits. Look at the rotten fruits of the people in power in Canada. It should wake people up. Yeah, you'll know them by their fruits, for sure. Yep. Jackass and pinto beans. Frank Vaughn, yes, that was my experience. Yep. It's like, yeah, I did it. Did what? What do you mean life keeps going? And then you start to understand as a result, it's like if you were rich, the money that you have, you know, it might be nice to be rich, but it's not going to fulfill you. It's not going to give your life meaning and purpose. And on the opposite of that is welfare. You know, I touched on this in the Indian Act video a little bit. Like, you can pour money into people, but money alone isn't going to give them value. It's not going to give them self-esteem and self-worth. So, like, you know, you come back to money being just a tool that you need to go about your life. But what actually gives you that feeling inside, that good feeling? And my answer is always been building things of value that people find useful. And that's basically it. Good, wholesome experience. I've never found anything more valuable than that. Wood stoves are cozy and cheap. Yes, they are. You can always cut your own wood, and buying wood is cheap compared to other things. There are a lot of geniuses who were religious: Einstein, Faraday, Max Planck. Yeah. I mean, I think faith and science go together myself. I have a wood stove too. I love everything about it. Getting my own wood, the warmth, the glow, no control from government. You know, the cool thing about wood is we operated the farm, we had our greenhouses. We started them March 15th generally. and we had a forced air oil-fired furnace. And that thing let me down 2 or 3 times to the point where I almost lost the entire crop because that furnace didn't come on. And the last time it happened, it was so bad, and it was so close. I had barbecues, I had candles burning in the greenhouse. I was doing everything to keep it above zero. I barely hung on because that stupid thing quit again. So I tore it out, and I put it in a wood stove. And I had to go down there. It's fun to talk about it now because I didn't tell anybody about that wood stove because my insurance company wouldn't have liked the fact that I was burning wood in that greenhouse. So it was a big secret that I had that. But I had it. That time is long gone, so I can talk about it now. And I would have to maintain it. So a couple times a night, I'd have to go down there and make sure that it was stocked. But whether it was windy, whether the hydro was on or off, power, electricity was on or off, whether it was stormy, whether it was cold, whether it wasn't so cold, all I needed was a bit of spark, and that thing provided reliable heat. And there is no greater feeling of security than that, whether you're in the greenhouse or you're in the home, that you know you're not going to freeze to death. That's why it makes me feel rich, even though it's actually such a basic if you think about it. The security of it. E-Sharp, Frank, I think your most memorable video was your shotgun video from years ago. For those of you who don't know, I did do some gun videos a couple times, and he's probably referring to the one where I shot the communist. Was it the Communist Manifesto, or was it it was a history of communism that I shot the hell out of with an SKS and that hunk of junk. What was that gun? Oh, it was a shotgun. It was a magazine pump action shotgun, and it broke. I had to do a warranty claim on it 3 times before they refunded my money. SAP 6, the SAP 6. But yeah, I did a bunch of. And then I did the one. I did the one where they were talking about gun safety, and I brought my SKS on the stream. And I leaned it against the green screen, and I basically said to everybody, let's just keep an eye on it throughout the course of the stream and see if it spontaneously shoots anybody, without a human pulling the trigger, because the point I was trying to make is it's the person behind the gun. It's not the gun itself. The gun is just a tool. And I was like poking it with my ruler. I don't know which one. That was Mr. Sharp, but if it was any of those, they were all pretty funny and fun to do. 1 cold in 6 years since I switched from forced air to wood stove. Yeah, well, that's the other thing. Where's your furnace in your house? It's in your basement. The basement of my house back east was a mix of dirt and a flagstone, fieldstone foundation. So every time the furnace came on, regardless of the filter being changed, it was blowing dust and mold and everything else all around the house. And it was, that house, let's just put it this way. My nasal cavities are so much clearer living in this house than they were back then. You used to have to clean yourself out a couple times a day. I'm glad I got my kids out of there. Hello, Frank. I hope the emails I sent last live chat reached you. They probably did. If I haven't responded yet, I haven't responded yet. I get quite a bit of verbose emails. Hopefully I didn't miss something important. Oak firewood is king, but ash is a close second. The best we've got in Saskatchewan is birch or tamarack. I tend to burn tamarack. That's considered hardwood here because it kind of technically is, but there's no oak, there's no hardwood maple, there's no cherry. So you kind of got to get used to that. The problem with oil is they don't come anymore to fill just a limited amount. It's scary for people who can't afford $800 bill all at once. $800 if you're lucky, man. I know exactly what you're talking about. And then and that's the other thing about oil. They leave you until you're almost empty. So I can't tell you how many times I ran out of oil because the oil guy didn't show up on time. So it's I'm literally out of oil. You can't come earlier because you're on auto scheduling, or you have to go off auto scheduling and call it in every single day. It sucked. Oil sucked. And then you buy a brand new tank and you install it, and then they update the standards. That's what I bought, this blue tank, single wall blue tank. They updated the standards, and I had to go and spend $2,000 on a double wall tank. Like 5 years later, had a brand new tank, and it was no good anymore because the standards have been upgraded, and they wouldn't. Oh man, oil sucked. So we have the wood stove, and we use it pretty heavily. And then we have in-floor heating too. So it's like in-floor electric. And it's actually not bad. Like compared to the old house, it doesn't cost me any more to heat this place. And this place is much bigger because in-floor electric is so much more efficient, and plus the wood stove. But yeah, there was so many problems with oil. And then if you get a little moisture in the oil line, it collects at the bottom. And so it'll trip your sensor and shut your heater off. Like there's so many problems that you can run into. It was a new gun that broke. Yeah, so it was the SAP 6. That thing broke every time I shot it. Did you ever hear an update on Mark Friesen and how he's doing with his health battle? I think last I heard he's losing. Last I heard he's losing. But I don't know. I don't know much. Mark, he's got me blocked, doesn't speak to me. People who are very Mark loyalists don't talk to me, so I don't know, but I wish him the best. Hey, Frank, have you ever heard of Homath? He does a great breakdown of the psychology levels in the society and the problems we have today. No, I haven't. Homath, quite the name. I remember one where you were in a small town hotel playing guitar. What? I don't think so. I know there's some guitar videos, but I don't think ever in public, other than making a video. I don't think that was me. I haven't been a heavy drinker for 20 years, so I probably remember. The wood stove dries the whole house nicely in fall and winter. Sure does. Takes the edge right off. And I radiant heat. I just love it. Love what you're doing, Frank. Keep it up. I am going to keep it up. I'm going to keep it up for a while. Like I'm just going to leave it at that. I'm going to keep it up for sure. We're going to expand on what we do. We're going to keep doing it. We're going to get better. We're going to get technically better, more sophisticated. Like I started making videos again in September, but it was January 17th specifically that I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this seriously. I'm going to actually I'm going to make videos regularly. And I'm going to spend a lot of my time in the office doing concerted research and trying to understand things. I'm going to really tighten up my game. I'm going to treat this professionally. And I gave myself a year. And we're just moving on from January 17th. We're almost to the 6-month point. And I've already determined that there's value here. I mean, we doubled the YouTube audience without turning on monetization. I went from 17,000 to I think we're at 29 now. So people are coming in. And a lot of the people, like even though, you get 4,000 or 5,000 views on a video, you folks are sticking around. A lot of you are sticking around and watching it all. Like you're getting value out of it. I can see it because you're giving it your time. Twitter, I went from 7,000 followers. I think I'm up to 23 something there, 23 and change. I don't know where I am. I don't keep track of it too much. Like YouTube's easy because whenever I go to the back end, the number's right there. Like you can't help but see it. It's always keeping you updated. And so it's not about the numbers. It's about utility. If people are spending 50, 60, 70,000 hours a month or whatever. I haven't looked at those stats in a while either. If they're spending all of that time watching you, then you're giving them value. And likewise, it puts pressure on me to make sure that these live streams are a bit of a gong show. I mean, there's only a couple hundred in here. So you're obviously just hanging out with me, which is cool, which means I don't need to be super efficient. But like when I make the videos, I'm trying to be efficient with your time because I don't want to waste your time. I'm literally robbing you of your life. So I want to make sure that I'm doing good things with it. But at any rate, we're coming up on the 6-month mark, and I can already see that I don't need a year to figure out if it's something that I need to pursue. Like, I already know I'm going to pursue it. And so we'll see where it goes. But I'm going to be here. I'm not going anywhere. And like, the main reason I left last time, excuse me, the main reason I left last time was because people started showing up at the house. Like, that was the deciding factor. Because even though they didn't have bad intentions, somebody was eventually going to show up that had bad intention. I literally couldn't afford to get any more famous at that point. Now I'm harder to find, and if you do find me, I'm going to see you coming. I am ready for all eventualities here. So I can afford to have that public profile and do good work while I'm doing it. So yeah, we're going to continue. I'm not going anywhere. Never heard of Tamarack. Might want you to ship me a piece. Tamarack. So that's what it's called here. And I've been calling it Tamarack for so long, I can't remember what the hell we call it back east. Larch. That's what it's called back east. Rocket stove, mass heater. You know something, man? The only complaint I have about the wood stove in this place is it's actually an insert in the wall, and I keep thinking about ripping that wall down and just putting a big stone, like actually building with my own two hands, a big stone mantle all around it. I love it. We're talking about heat. I came in here I started the stream intending to have people yelling at me about mass immigration. Man, it really triggered me when people came out of that video saying I was advocating for mass immigration, and I'm like, how did you get that out of that video? I'm literally saying the opposite. Anyway, let's not obsess over the past. He has a moat, guard dogs, minefields. I don't have guard dogs because I don't want to take care of them. I'm not going to tell you what else I got. I'll see you coming. I'm not worried about it, but I'll see you coming. I'm ready. I'm ready to be famous. It's called Larch down south. Yeah. I got nukes to protect myself from Big Brother. He split the atom. Yeah, no, I don't have nukes. Big mantle is extra thermal mass. Good idea. Exactly. Oh, Troy, man. Troy Easter. Good to see you. I do miss your garlic from the farm stand. Man, I miss you. I miss all my customers. Like, I never got a chance to say goodbye to so many people because it happened so fast, and it happened in the dead of winter, and I was half crippled with my back problem at the time. So, like, I don't know if it was psychosomatic. I don't know if it was the air. I don't know if it was stress-induced or whatever, but I was more than halfway crippled when we sold the house and moved. Like, it was tough. Getting ready because we had to clear out. Like, it wasn't just my stuff. There was old junk from my dad and friends of his and people who had filled our barn with crap. None of it was mine. We had to sort it all out. And the whole time, like, I was in a cloud of pain. But, like, we sold in February. We had to be gone by April. And it was all, like, we were down to the wire. We were still cleaning stuff up the moment we left. And so, man, you know, there's so many people I never got to say goodbye to. And I haven't made it back yet because it's expensive. I'm not flying back because, like, and people are still angry that I left. So, like, we don't have an abundance of places to stay. Like, it's not like we're exactly welcome back in Ontario. I don't know why it's that way. I don't know why people have chosen to punish us for moving here, but they have. So, like, you know, if you fly back, you gotta pay for lodging. You gotta rent a car. So if I go back, I'm gonna drive back. And if I drive back, it's a 5-day drive one way. It's a 5-day drive back the other way because you got kids. There's only so far you can travel in a day. Then you got to pay for hotels. You got to find a place to stay. And so it hasn't happened yet because it's like we're talking $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 just to go back. And a lot of the people I want to see don't even necessarily want to see me. But it sucks because there's a lot of people I want to see, and there's a lot of people I never said goodbye to, and it bothers me a lot. But anyway, Troy, and you guys were awesome too. I mean, I remember your wife gave us some clothes and a sling for the kid, and you were just, there's a lot of people who were really good to us, and I never got to say goodbye. So I'm always happy to see you pop up in the chat. Glenn says, I tell everyone how awesome you are, Frank. Hopefully they look up to you or look you up. Yeah, hopefully they do, because they have to look me up, because they're not, the algorithm's not going to show them me very easily. Like, that's the thing. Without being monetized, word of mouth is the only way we grow. Because even on the back end, when I look at the statistics, when I put out a new video, whatever the feed's called, where you, like, the main feed, subscribers are getting fed my video, not new people. New people have to find me some other way. So, like, as long as we remain this way, it's going to be word of mouth that does it, which is why in a lot of videos I thank you guys for doing that, because the only reason we grow is because people are finding me because of you. And that's not an exaggeration. At some point, if money allows, I'll probably run digital ads. I've thought about renting billboards, but it needs a budget. That day may come. Will I be farming in Saskatchewan? The boy keeps bugging me too. He's 6 and he's dreaming of a homestead, and he's just like, Daddy, can we have a homestead? I'm like, well, we kind of already have one. We just don't have the stead part of it. Like, we got to... It's different here, Troy. There's fewer people. Markets are daunting because they're stretched out and far away. Bugs are different. The climate is different. I think it's up in the air. That question is up in the air, whether or not I'll farm here. We will see. You can see as far as Alberta, not quite. The world is round. Did I just offend somebody? The world is round. I believe in round earth. I'm a shill. Frank has satellites passing on. No, just Starlink. You are not a dog hater, are you? If so, no, I'm not a dog hater. I love dogs. I just don't want to take care of one. I have a cat. I like my cat. I've had a dog before. I love him. Loved him. Love him. I wish I had him back. Charlie Boy was a wonderful dog. It's kind of silly actually, because I would like to have a dog, but I don't want to be tied down to a dog, but I don't really go anywhere and do anything, so I could be tied down to a dog and it wouldn't be that big a deal. I love dogs. I have friends out here that have dogs, and every time I see them, I get covered in fur because I'm loving on their dogs. So, yeah, I don't have a problem with dogs. Not at all. I heard Frank hates dogs and puppies. You gotta be kidding me. I love him. I just don't have any. I found you through Wyatt Claypool. Yep, he's been very kind to me too. And we disagree on some things. And that's another thing. You know, there's people out there that you can disagree with without them hating you. I actually consider Wyatt a buddy. We don't talk very much. Like that's the thing. I think people think that all of us influencers or whatever we are gather together at night and we all party together. And really what it is everybody's doing their own thing and we barely ever talk. Like that's literally how it works. I know a lot of these guys and like we barely ever talk to each other because we're doing our own things. We're just people. But you know, I really mark the ones that you can disagree with on some things and they can still respect and talk to you and treat you like a human being versus the ones that just have to try and destroy you with all of their energy because you had a disagreement. And I like Wyatt. I got a soft spot for Wyatt. Even when I disagree with him, I have a soft spot for that guy. See you later. How'd you? Well, I guess if you said you checked out, you're not even here, so I'm not even going to say goodbye to you. Bye. General bye to anybody who's left. All year in Vancouver, rain, frost, inside, outside. They smell great. The Fraser Valley was one of the most beautiful things I have ever seen. I've only been there once. The climate is just incredible. It's a grower's dream. And no bugs. Where was I? I was above Chilliwack. So I was in the hills, well, the mountains above Chilliwack, but I was like lower down. There's a big subdivision development. It's built up the mountain a little bit. And so we're sitting there at night. We're having a couple drinks. And I don't know why, but we were inside. We weren't out on the deck. And they opened their windows at night. And all the lights were on in the house. They opened their windows. And I'm just like, my jaw kind of dropped because they had no screens on the windows. And so I said to my friend, I'm like, what are you doing? Like, oh, I'm opening the window. I'm letting air in. I'm like, you don't have any screens. You're gonna be full of bugs in here in no time. He's like, bugs? What are you talking about, bugs? Didn't have any bugs. We sat there with the lights blazing all night long and bugs weren't flying in. I couldn't believe it. If you did that back east or you did that in Saskatchewan, you'd lose your house to bugs. Didn't have any bugs. And so he ended up, I think it was like 6 weeks later, he sent me a picture of this little tiny bug that he had on his wall. And he's like, see, I got one. I told you I had one. The dude had three of those electric racket things that you electrocute bugs with. He had 3 of them, and he had no bugs. I'm like, I don't have any, and I've got all kinds of bugs. Beautiful climate. You could grow anything in. You were a recommended channel through YouTube. I'm surprised, too. Yeah, generally speaking, it's not going to advertise for you unless they can make money off you. I've never been to the Okanagan. Barbara, you're in Chilliwack. Cool. Beautiful. It's just such a beautiful climate. I can only imagine what it looked like before we settled it. Like, it's like paradise. We were driving up, I think it's around Hope, up in the mountains, and just, gorgeous. Clean water. I mean, you got all these people and you got these mountain springs feeding these pristinely clean, beautiful rivers that you can just drink right out of as it cascades down the mountain. Like, just paradise. What is the ground like where you are in Saskatchewan? Good. We have good land. It's a shorter growing season, Troy. That's the only problem. But livestock does very well here. What crops you can grow, I mean, it's like a 120-day growing season, so it's short. But the land is rich. The land is rich. Yeah. No, I haven't been to the Okanagan. Need a camping trip out here. Water days. Yeah, I should. I'm that much closer to the mountains, and I've been here 3 years, and I haven't been back to the mountains yet. I really need to get that done. But again, I'm always being a cheapskate, right? I don't want to spend the money. Like, I tried to plan a trip last summer. I wanted to go to Drumheller and check out the Dino Museum, and then they have like this. They have a bunch of stuff there that I wanted to check out with the kids. And so I priced out a 3-day trip, and I'm like, man, it's going to cost me like $1,200 just to do that for 3 days. And so I canned it. The wife and I talked about it. We're like, no, you know what? If we're going to spend $1,200, we'll spend it later. For now, we'll just hang on and we'll see, right? Because again, time more valuable than money. But I really, really want to get back to the mountains because I've only seen them once, and I need to see them again. Yeah, right. Goofy bootlicker, please wish my brother Nick a happy birthday. You're going to have to be more clever than that. Here in Ontario, we were getting record numbers for our calves on real high prices. Good. Good, man. Glad to hear it. Glad to hear you're making money. good to make some money. Makes up for all the other times you're not making money. I could send you pics you would leave today, probably. I love it where I am. I really do. But like, see, I thought about that too when we were looking for a place to go. And I thought about the mountains, like interior BC, because nobody can afford to live in the lower mainland and nobody would want to anyway. No offense to anybody. It's there. Just not for my purposes, not for raising kids and getting away from Soji and all the woke mind virus. Like, you're not going to get away from it in the lower mainland. But the interior had a lot of good communities outside of the centers. And of course you get the mountains, right? There's honestly, when it comes to survivability and trying to make a go, if you're thinking about the world falling apart and societal collapse and all that sort of stuff, there's almost no better place to be than the mountains. But it's just so darn expensive everywhere. And it didn't happen. And the politics. I mean, at the end of the day, you're still governed by Victoria, right? So, and Vancouver. So Saskatchewan was the clear winner. But the climate, though, and the look, beautiful. Crazy how expensive things are. Still find the best things in life for free. Yep. Even the free things cost money, though. Time costs money, and there's only so cheap you can live, and that's the wall I ran up to. It's like I can't cut anymore. Things just cost what they cost now. Drumheller, we called it the trench when I lived there. Hey, Wes, good to see you, man. Hope you and your family are doing good. Yeah, but that's where all there's a lot of cool stuff to see. I'm not sure I'd want to live there. I think that's where Polyev's running too, which is another reason I've been revisiting this idea of taking the family out there, because the by-election's on the 18th. Maybe I could time it where I could take in an event or run into them somewhere or do some cool, whatever we call this, content-related stuff while I'm there. I haven't given it much more than a cursory thought, but all the dinosaur bones. There's like a UNESCO site there, where they dig up all the bones, and like you can go and see it and tour it, and like all that stuff's pretty cheap. It's the lodging part. Everywhere you go is $150 or $200 a night just for a bed. Ugh. But I think the kids would love it, so it's going to have to happen. Lower mainland is a woke nightmare. It sure is. Wanda, congratulations on your 40th wedding anniversary. That's awesome. Congratulations. I hope I'm blessed enough to get that far in our marriage. I think we're going to be together. We've made it. I think we're coming up on 19 years in October we've been together. And when I say being together, like we work together, we live together. Somehow we find things to talk about every single day. We still love each other. We still like each other. Love and like are two different things, folks. You want to find somebody that you can both love and like. So if I'm so blessed to live that long, we'll probably see our 40th, but that's awesome. Congratulations. I hope you guys are having a good day. Unfortunately, the ocean comes with a whole lot of people and attitude. Yep, sure does. You got to see the hoodoos. Yeah, Kenzie. That's another thing I was looking at in looking at things that we can do. Yep. That's right there on the list. Man, there's so many cool things, actually. Like, Alberta's full of stuff. There's a bird sanctuary, a predatory bird sanctuary about an hour and a half east of Calgary. There's cool stuff to see in southern Saskatchewan. My boy likes all the ruins and traipsing through kind of the forgotten towns and stuff. So we want to go and do that for sure. And this stuff, like, it doesn't cost a fortune to do, right? Most of it's just gas and lodging. I've thought about just camping, but some people have pointed out problems with that idea. Setting up camp in the middle of a downpour, and I mean, it would be good for character, but I'm not sure it's a long-term solution. if what you really want to do is just have a good time. Used to have a gopher museum. Well, there's enough gophers out here. I can understand that. Ever thought about putting your wife on your stream once in a while? I'd never be able to talk her into it. And no, I quite frankly don't want anybody knowing what she looks like. So that's why I don't bring my kids on either. I've thought about that. I mean, it'd be fun to have the Rugrats come in here sometimes and raid the stream or get involved in a video, but then their faces are out there. And I don't know. It might not be as big a deal as I make it out to be, because politicians, you know, they've got their kids on there, and there's other people with a lot bigger followings that, you know, their kids are on their streams. I don't know. It's just been easier to keep them out of it, keep it separated. Frank needs to go to Frank's slide. I've never heard of that. Social media is cancer. You're right. You really need discipline to be able to successfully engage with it. Politicians have security. Good to have some privacy. Yep. Who was that you went live with the other day? Clyde. Clyde do something. He's got a channel. It's pretty big. There's another reason too to keep the family separated, because she is the primary. She's university educated, and she's the primary educator of our kids. She went to a very liberal university. And graduated with honors, the full thing, and managed to survive without becoming an irredeemable wokie. And so keeping them separate from my work might provide, like, I mean, they don't watch my videos. They know I make videos. We've had some fun making some fun, like, house videos where they come in and they act like daddy because they hear my voice get elevated sometimes. But they don't watch my work. And my wife, she gets enough of it from me. She watches the occasional video, but she doesn't watch everything I put out. And because she's kind of their primary educator, you know, there's a bit of Ontario paranoia that's left in me that maybe I should keep this side of my life separate from that side of my life, just in case I get myself in hot water one day. Maybe it'll go towards saving them some headaches that they don't necessarily need as children. So that's another reason to keep it all separated. Bear the responsibility myself as best I can. Clyde's just been good. He's just a good guy. I think he's honestly intended. There's people who think he's a shill or paid by whoever or whatever else. And, like, I don't know. Like, I've gotten to know him a little bit. I don't want to say we're best friends. We just got to know each other. But, like, you know, I've, at least on stream, like, or online, I've met his daughter. She's beautiful. He's got a beautiful family. And I think he's a hardworking mechanic. I think he's just trying to do good and cool things. Whether he's successful or not, I don't know. We're all human. I make mistakes. I'm sure he makes mistakes. But I don't think he's ill-intended by any stretch. And, you know, he's not trying to, like, there's some, and I'm not going to name anybody, but, like, there's some channels out there that are fairly large. And it's only some. It's a minority. It's not the majority. But they seem to think that they need every single viewer themselves. That there's a big pie, and they want it all themselves. They demean every other channel and every other content creator and put themselves up as the only true voice in Canada. That they're the best, and everybody else is a Russian bot or a paid asset or whatever else, and they do that. They don't share what they have with other people. They don't pay it forward. And I hate that. One of the reasons I want to get a StreamYard key and I want to start doing interviews is so I can bring smaller content creators that I like on the channel and help them get audience. And that's what Clyde does. And that's what a number of people do. They help. They share. Because they recognize it's a great big pie and everybody can have a piece. There's so many content creators that it's impossible for everybody to watch them all. So we all have our little communities, and there's some overlap, but like there's plenty for everybody. And the people who act like they have to keep it all for themselves, first off, they can't because it's impossible. And secondly, it's narcissistically selfish, and it sucks. And you can kind of tell the good ones from the bad ones because the good ones are more than happy to share and build other people up. And Clyde does that. He builds other people up. Barbara says, Clyde was my first. Keep personal information like that to yourself. I mean, you're welcome to do whatever you want, but if he was your first, I don't know if he wants you sharing that. I'm sorry. I couldn't help myself. I understand what you mean. Clyde Do Nothing. Yeah, that's my favorite. It's my favorite nickname. He works awfully hard. He works awfully hard to be a do nothing. Yeah. Whether you like him or not, you should be able to admit that he puts in an awful lot of time. So I think, in general, the quality of the stream was good. I haven't seen anybody complaining. I haven't seen anybody complaining about problems with the stream. So it must be going decently. Maybe it's time to pull the trigger on that StreamYard key and get ready to do more interviews and other content like that. And get other people on the channel because it seems to be working. So I got to take a leak and I need a drink and it's going to be dinner soon. So I'm probably going to call it quits, but I had a good time just hanging out. And that's kind of what these streams are all about, is just hanging out. Wes Sproul says Torrington, a few miles east of Truchu, actually has a gopher museum. I love it. I love it. Gopher museums. I got to take in a gopher museum. That's the other thing about here. The museums. Every small town has amazing museums with the coolest stuff. And it's often entries by donation. Like, there's nothing comparable in Ontario to the level of like trying to hold on to the culture and the memory of what built the place. The museums here are amazing. Like you go to a little small town of 1,000 or 2,000 people, and they're gonna have a world-class museum, in my opinion. Yeah, there's so much cool stuff like that, especially for kids. But at any rate, yeah, I'm gonna get going. I'm glad the live went good. This is a good sign technically, and I think I'm going to put some time into the back end, getting some stuff set up for sure. It was awesome chilling with you guys. And I'm, happy to know I got friends out there. I may not have too many people, in my real life, but I've got a hell of a community here, and I genuinely appreciate all of you. There's not much more I can say about it. I'm Frank